Ha ha! Ha ha ha! Yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy? Sports and Fitness Rants. I'm back, guys. Click that like button. Subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to another live edition. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with another live. That's right. It's a Sunday morning / afternoon live. Once again, shout out to all you guys that continue to come through. And you know what we're going to be talking about in this live today. Because I watched the entire second half of that Denver Nuggets-Minnesota game. And there's a lot of things that we want to talk about today, my friends. So once again, you guys know the deal on this channel. It's all about setting the record straight, stopping the lies, stopping the narratives, stopping them from rewriting history, guys. Remember that. Remember that. And once again, I want to thank you guys, everyone across the world, everyone across the states that's been supporting my channel. You guys know I am truly humbled. Truly humbled. Like I said, much respect, man. And you guys know what to do. Turn the volume all the way up. Hit that play button. Remember, these videos, these lives are for educational purposes. It's about the education, man. And let's roll. So, yes, guys, once again, good morning, good afternoon to all you guys out there, man. Like I said, I'm truly humbled for all you guys, man, for always coming through, supporting my lives, supporting the show. Shout out to Dash Lamar for coming through, the Jesse Glass Saget. Shout out to you once again, man. You guys know I'm truly humbled to see the same names all the time show up here on my lives. So once again, man, Ivan 1294, Lynetta 402, Renee, shout out to you. Shout out to my man, F King Loser. Shout out to you, man. It means a lot for you guys to continue to come through. Happy Sunday to you. Andre Carter, 1590. Yeah, where's Scap Attack? I'm sure Scap's got something up his sleeve, you know, some excuses. Because remember, if you're looking for an excuse, you will find it. So shout out to Somewhat Aussie. Shout out to anybody out there from Australia, the New Zealand people out there. I'm doing good, man. Shout out to you guys. Like I said, man, it means a lot for you guys to continue to come through. Shout out to Casual Hoophead. I appreciate you guys. Remember, man, this has never been about Nikola Jokic, him personally. It's about the promotion of Nikola Jokic, how they've been promoting him, his fan base, right? All this stuff I told you, they've become the new LeBron James fan base, the Nikola Jokic fan base, and that's what it's been about, all right? So they forced us to take a look at Nikola Jokic, or they forced me to take a look at Nikola Jokic more closely over these last several seasons, since you want to promote him as a great offensive player, you know, than a Michael Jordan, or, you know, whatever the case may be here. Again, shout out to my man Andrew Music for coming through. It's all good. I've been off on the last couple of lives on the Sundays and stuff. You know, things have been getting a little crazy. I told you my mother's birthday last weekend, and then it was Easter, so there's been things going on. Shout out to John Loso for coming through. Nemo, Los Angeles. Once again, I'm truly humbled. You guys continue to come through. Like I said, I hope you guys are doing good on Sunday. I hope your weekend is going good. I would have liked to have done this live earlier this morning, like normally, maybe like around 9-ish. But my son had a flag football game and stuff, so there was just no way for me to do a live that early. But I definitely wanted to do something a little early. But you know that we had to talk about what I saw last night, man, between the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves, man. And again, as you guys can see in the title of this live show, Nikola Jokic at the end of that game had more energy for Jaden McDaniels than he did to play any kind of defense throughout the entirety of that game, man. I watched the entire second half of that game. The game before, I told you guys, I watched the entire first half of the previous game, and the game was over in the first half. It was, I told you, 61-39 when I went to bed at halftime. And like I said, the game was over in the first quarter, I told you, and the Denver Nuggets put 11 points out there. And Nikola Jokic is to continue to look like not the greatest offensive player in the history of the game. So again, remember, this is not about Nikola Jokic himself, the player. I've never really thought about Nikola Jokic like that up until the last couple of seasons because of all the things I was hearing, the promotion of him. Working on doing lives with guys like Scab Attack and constantly hearing the promotion of Nikola Jokic and how great he is and what he would do to the guys in the past and how he's the most skilled center ever. And what we're witnessing now has never been done before. I was seeing tons of people's videos telling, oh man, Nikola Jokic is breaking the NBA. This is what you see in the tons of videos. Oh, Nikola Jokic should have 5 MVPs. He should have won 5 in a row. The greatest 5-year span in NBA's history. Nikola Jokic, the greatest offensive player in NBA's history. He's a smarter basketball player than Michael Jordan. That's what it's about. The promotion of him. How they promote this man all of a sudden now is the LeBron James effect. I turn around, I wake up one day, I turn the freaking TV on, I turn on the internet, and I got Stan Van Gundy telling me he's the greatest player of all time and the greatest basketball players have played in the last 20 years. You turn on someone like Dan Le Batard, and he's telling you he's more skilled than Michael Jordan was. This is what you're hearing from guys who are supposed to be professional analysts. They're supposed to be giving you the facts and giving you context and perspective on the history of the game. But you're not getting this. We can get this nonsensical approach to Nikola Jokic. And I told you it's becoming cringe, and it's getting really weird out here with a lot of people out here that make content, but they won't call Nikola Jokic out for the same crap. So again, shout out to all you guys, Armand Smith, Yo King, Brandon Heyman, David Young Senior, GT. Shout out to you guys for coming through. I'm tired of this stuff. TG, shout out to you. I'm done with it, and that's where it started. So again, I told you last season, I was forced to take a harder look at Nikola Jokic and watch more of his games. I told you I watched almost every single game the Denver Nuggets played last season in the playoffs, and mostly was due to Russell Westbrook being on the team, and I was rooting to see what Russell Westbrook could do to help the Denver Nuggets win, to help Nikola Jokic win another championship. So again, I've been watching this guy over the last 2 years, and I've told you guys what, I am not impressed, and I'm not looking at him, and I'm not thinking about him in the same way that I'm hearing him talked about. I do not think he's as great as everyone's saying he is. I'm not saying he's not great. I'm not saying that he's not great in his era. And I'm not saying he should have never won those MVPs. I've never told you guys on here I don't respect his championships. I've never told you guys I don't respect his game or his career. I've never said that stuff about Nikola Jokic. I do not respect his fan base. I do not respect the promotion from guys like Scap Attack. And what you're seeing in the games over the last couple of games now in this Minnesota Timberwolves series is exactly what I've been telling you guys over the last 2 seasons here. That Nikola Jokic would struggle against some of the elite centers from the past, and he would have a problem having to guard these guys. And he would have a problem, once again, getting up and down the court against these guys in that style of NBA. He would be put in awkward positions like you're seeing him being put in now over the last couple of games here. And he would not be having the impact against legit defensive teams that are going to be playing physical, tough defense on you every single night. And you're going against legit centers every single night. It's not going to happen. This triple-double nonsense basketball, what I see Nikola Jokic doing the top of the key out here in these games, nonsensical. That's not going to work in another era of NBA where guys are playing legit defense on you. You're not going to be... Nikola Jokic is allowed to dribble the ball off the court in this era. And guys, once again, I respect what he can do. But this man is carrying the ball every single time he dribbles up the court. I don't know how many travels and carries I saw him commit just last night alone. He's out here skipping around, dribbling the ball like this. So when they say, oh, Hakeem Olajuwon couldn't do that, or Patrick Ewing couldn't dribble like that, right? Oh, I never saw Robert Parrish pass the ball and do all this crazy stuff. No, it's not that they couldn't do this stuff or they couldn't learn how to do these kinds of things at a certain level. There's no way you're doing that stuff in that era under that level of officiating. And again, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. That's not winning basketball for the New York Knicks to be like, yo, Patrick Ewing, man, you're the best player on the team. We're going to give you the ball every time at the top of the key. It don't matter if you're a great passer or not. Well, you're going to work on those things. You'll get better at passing. You'll get better at dribbling. You're Patrick Ewing. You're our best chance to win. So we're going to give you the ball and let you make all the decisions and do everything out there on the basketball court. That's dumbass basketball. That's what you see happening for the Denver Nuggets. This is dumbass basketball. So again, good morning to all you guys on a Sunday Live. So now we got that out the way. Remember, this is not the promotion, guys. All right, again, shout out to all you guys that continue to come through. Like I said, it means a lot for you guys. I think I saw someone send a super in here. Shout out to Josh for always coming through. Means a lot. He says, this series had me get off the Jokic bandwagon. Even with a weak team, he was playing the T-Wolves, not the 86 Celtics or the late 80s Pistons. Shout out to Jolly Joshams. And like I said, there's a lot to cover, guys, over the last couple of games and what I've been seeing over the last couple of seasons from Nikola Jokic. I told you, it's not just about the last couple of games for me, particularly because I told you I've been forced to, once again, this is similar to the Scottie Pippen stuff, right? When people start to try to create this narrative about Scottie Pippen, we were forced to do what? We were forced to take a harder look at Scottie Pippen and actually present the facts about Scottie Pippen and the reality about it. So when people really went back and started looking at stuff, right, you actually start really critiquing Scottie Pippen really hard now. Then all of a sudden, right, you're like, yeah, he was actually worse than we thought he was. And he's actually being promoted for being greater. And he's remembered for being a lot greater than he really was. So a similar thing with Nikola Jokic for me. I'm forced to take a harder look at you now and really look at what you're doing on the basketball court. So in a playoff scenario, what I've been seeing over the last couple of games, and, Judge Johnson is talking about getting off the bandwagon. You guys know I was never on a bandwagon or off the bandwagon on Nikola Jokic. I respected him for being one of the great players of this era. But again, I respected and I understand there was context and perspective that must have always been given. So I've told you, we talk about LeBron James, right? And the era that LeBron James plays in, right? And we laugh about LeBron James in his era, and rightfully so. But Nikola Jokic is playing in the same NBA. He's been in the NBA over the last 10 seasons. Has he not? Yes, he has. So all the things that we laugh about with LeBron James and the league and the officiating standard and how soft it is and all these things, well, Nikola Jokic is getting benefited from all this stuff also, guys. So when you see him dribbling the ball and people talk about his passing ability, and yes, he's a skilled basketball player. No one's denying Nikola Jokic's skills here. All right, what you're seeing in the playoffs over these last several games, what you've seen from Nikola Jokic throughout his career, because this is part of the reason why he has won championship. Not saying that he should have 1 billion championships, but you have one, and they're promoting you as having several almost. You would think Nikola Jokic has about 4 or 5 champions right now, championships plus those 3 MVPs that he has. That's how he's talked about as a guy who has about 5 championships and 3 MVPs. That's the promotion of Nikola Jokic. If he was a 3-time NBA champion and a 3-time MVP winner, then I think the conversation would be a lot different, and there wouldn't be as much problem, or I wouldn't have as much of a problem with the promotion of him if that was the case. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And the one championship that Nikola Jokic does have is the weakest championship run, guys, in NBA's history. Let's be real about this. You didn't face or beat a single 50-win team en route to your championship, and the team that you beat in the finals was what, a number 6 ranked team or a play-in Miami Heat team, if I remember correctly. So again, no one's knocking your championship. I respect you as a champion. You didn't have to form a super team or finagle anything or get a bunch of free throws or referee help to win the championship, Nikola Jokic. None of this stuff. But again, it was still a weak-ass run nonetheless. So when we talk about the overall Nikola Jokic career and the promotion of him again, it doesn't go hand in hand, doesn't add up. So again, we talk about the Timberwolves. Like I said, there's a lot of things that we have to talk about here. So, again, I want to put some respect and some shine on the Minnesota Timberwolves here and give them some credit here because they lost Anthony Edwards. He's done for the series. If you guys don't know, Anthony Edwards done for the series. Hyperextended knee. So, when you think about what the Minnesota Timberwolves have to do now, up 3-1, and once again, I've never said, and I haven't said in any of my videos, that the series is over. So it's not looking good for the Denver Nuggets. They're in a bad spot right now. However, Anthony Edwards is down. DiVincenzo is out, right? So it gives you a chance to actually come back in this series. If Nikola Jokic is going to be the greatest offensive player in the history of the game, if he's going to be a 3-time MVP player and play like a 3-time MVP player, then the Denver Nuggets should have a chance to come back and win this series. That's the sad reality that we're looking at right now when you think about the landscape and the overall outcome from last night. Because like I said, the reports that I just saw of Anthony Edwards is that he's out for several weeks, not several days, several weeks with a hyperextended knee. DiVincenzo's out maybe all of next season with a torn Achilles. So he's done. And once again, man, I feel bad for DiVincenzo because to me, he was the play of the game in that game 3 of the other night. Sensational. Like I said, to start that game when they came out like gangbusters and had the Nuggets down early. He was a key to that start. So when you talk about those guys going down, it gives the Nuggets a chance to come back in the series. You have, once again, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. The story of the game last night was obviously the guy Ayo Dosunmu. Shout out to him. I jacked his name probably all up. You guys know I'm not good with names. Shout out to Chi-Town. The dude is from Chicago. So Chicago, Chi-Town, stand up. Somebody out there again, man. I have a lot of people from Chi-Town representing my channel. So shout out to Chi-Town and the Ayo Dosunmu and what he did last night, because for him to go out there, because like I said, he was the story of the game. Story of the game was that dude. Because again, when they needed baskets, because in the beginning of the game last night, like I said, we'll talk about some of this stuff. The Minnesota Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards wasn't doing a damn thing out there. Like I said, they were looking terrible. The starters for the Minnesota Timberwolves, my goodness, man. My goodness. Julius Randle is hard to watch that man play basketball. I remember when he was on the Knicks. That man's hard to watch play. He's hard to watch play. He have a play where he's brilliant, and then he'll have 3 or 4 plays where you're like, what the hell are you doing, Randall? I mean, he takes a low percentage shots. He plays a low IQ basketball, and then the next play, he'll do something that you're like, what the hell? Who was that? That was Julius Randle who did that? And that's the problem with Julius Randle. He has those moments out on the basketball court, but he's frustrating as hell to watch. Okay? So the starters were doing nothing for the Minnesota Timberwolves. As a matter of fact, I believe I saw a stat last night that the Minnesota Timberwolves starters had 14 points in the first half. And it was the fewest points for a first half in their franchise history in a playoff game. So when we talk about what Ayo Dosunmu was doing, again, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. This dude was the story of the game because not only did he put up the 43 points, obviously you can look at the box score and be like, damn, what this dude do was sensational. But we're talking about, the timing of the baskets that he was hitting because the Minnesota Timberwolves were down by 4 points going into the half. It was 54-50, if I remember correctly. And Nikola Jokic came out on fire. He came out looking as if he was upset, and he took it personal. That's how I saw Nikola Jokic in the beginning of the game. He came out strong in the beginning of the game. I was watching the first start of the game, and then I turned it off. I think I turned it off like the first, I don't know, maybe like almost before the first quarter was like maybe like 7 or 6 minutes into the first quarter. I turned the game off, and I came back to it in the second half. And when Nikola Jokic came out in the game, he came out doing his thing. He was doing Nikola Jokic stuff out there, right? And the Denver Nuggets came out. They said they had the lead, but they weren't really beating the Minnesota Timberwolves the way you thought they should have been beating them with Anthony Edwards going down, DiVincenzo going down the first seconds of the game. Anthony Edwards, even when he was in there, wasn't doing anything. The first 3 shots Anthony Edwards took last night were 3-pointers. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, why are you taking all these threes already? Like the first 3 shots you take are threes? You're Anthony freaking Edwards, man. You should be putting pressure on these fools. You should be trying to dunk on cats, but we know it hurts his hand when he dunks, he said, right? But that's what he should be doing, all right? Instead, though, the Minnesota Timberwolves starters weren't doing much of anything last night, and the bench play from Ayo Dosunmu, but even Naz Reid, who came in, like I said, and did things, everyone that pretty much came in contributed mightily in some form of shape, form, or fashion, man. They went out there. So, like I said, I see some of you guys. Yeah, you guys know what Randall is, man. It's weird how Julius Randle is to me. Like I said, it's laughable the way he plays the game because sometimes, like I said, you'll see a couple of plays and you're like, get this guy out the damn court. And then the next time down the court, he pulls a play out where he pulls a move and finishes, and you're like, that was Julius Randle? That was Anthony Edwards. And then you're like, all right, man, maybe leave him in the next play, right? And then you leave him in and he does something stupid again. And you're like, damn it. I think it's frustrating as hell watching. But not only Julius Randle, I think this is what we talked about with the NBA. Because I've told you guys, I don't watch full games anymore like I used to, right? Because I'm not as drawn into a certain player or a certain team like I used to be drawn in, or to the league that I used to be drawn to the league, where, back in the day, you would put a team on or put a game on, and you would just sit and watch it the whole game. They would just keep you sucked in. Not only would the game keep you in, the broadcasting was also fantastic. So you're getting an education. It's a double-edged sword there. It was twofold, right? You're watching the game and learning about the game. Now you're watching whatever is supposed to be the game. And sometimes you do get flashes of really good basketball. And then you get some times on the court where you're like, what the hell are we doing out here? And I'm not saying I'm a genius basketball mind, or I should be coaching people out here. But sometimes when you're watching this stuff, it's like, damn, we can't even do the simple stuff. Like they're just doing dumb shot selection a lot of times from a lot of these players, dumb rotations or lack of rotations, or even a situational or court awareness sometimes that makes you think that they don't even know what the score is or how much time is up on the clock. It's weird, the kinds of shots that people take, they play outside of themselves. So when we talk about Ayo Dosunmu, he was the story of the game. Hands down story of the game. Like I told you, the timely shots in the second half, the Minnesota Timberwolves came with the timely baskets. And again, the story is always what, guys? What have we talked about with Nikola Jokic and the problem for someone like him? And they never want to mention this stuff or really act like it's a problem. Is defense. Defense. The Minnesota Timberwolves, right? They played consistent defense all game. They didn't play all-time great defense or sensational, perfect defense. They played consistent defense last night. And they've been playing consistent defense over these last 3 wins. That's what they've done. So it's not about always the time of the level of defense that you play, right? It's the consistency of the effort you're giving. Because, yeah, you can maybe raise your intensity for a couple of plays in a game, and then be bad in other times. But if you're consistently there, you're always trying to hustle. You're trying to fight through screens or get around the screens. You're being smart on defense. You're understanding the court, where you are, the ball and the man. You're doing all these things out there, right? If you're doing that stuff consistently, it's going to put you in a good position at the end of a game. So when we talk about the things like people have said, like a Kevin Durant has downplayed the impact of defense at the highest level. This is NBA basketball, guys. This is not junior high. This is not high school. This is not college. This is not your local rec league. This is not outside in the park. This is the highest level. It's supposed to be the highest level of basketball in the world that we're supposed to be witnessing. However, when you watch these guys out here on the basketball court play, you're not getting that version of that. So these guys act as if, like I said, when they're playing defense, it's not supposed to be a consistent thing. And when you watch the Minnesota Timberwolves, they've given that consistent effort, right? They've paid attention to the assignment, so to speak, where the Denver Nuggets have not given the consistent effort. Have the Denver Nuggets shown flashes of playing really good, solid defense in this series? Absolutely. They came out last night playing really good defense, the Denver Nuggets. They really did. So when you talk about the effort that they were giving at the start of the game last night, it was there. It should have been there the night before when they got jumped on and smoked, because I told you Jaden McDaniels was talking trash and he gave them, quote unquote, bulletin board material. But you didn't get that out there on the basketball court the other game. And last night they came out a little more fine at the defensive end. But it wasn't consistent across the board for the entire game. So when it mattered most, the Denver Nuggets faltered, because defense is what you can always fall back on, right? The great teams, the teams that are really trying to be contenders, your consistent effort on the defensive end is what you can always fall back on. The Denver Nuggets, guys, this season were the second highest rated offense in the history of the NBA. The second highest rated offense in the history of the game, the Denver Nuggets this season. But yet and still, when it mattered most, they can't crack 100 points. They can't crack 100 points. Are the Minnesota Timberwolves the greatest defensive team of all time all of a sudden? Are they? Is Rudy Gobert all of a sudden, Hakeem Olajuwon down low, or Dikembe Mutombo? Is he one of these all-time great defensive guys in their max peak primes? I don't believe he is. But what you're seeing from Rudy Gobert is the impact that he has against Nikola Jokic. And why is that? Again, because he's actually giving effort on defense. He's actually playing defense. So again, this is what we talk about. When defense is not focused on and not prevalent, and the guys that are known as elite defensive guys, like a Rudy Gobert at that position, as great as he is, again, there's levels to this. Levels. And we all understand. No disrespect to Rudy Gobert, because you're seeing in the series, he's proving a point here in the series that he is actually a good defensive player, and he understands his impact and what he's supposed to do. He's not playing outside of himself. He's not chugging up a bunch of weird shots, because you see he's not really putting any pressure on Nikola Jokic on the offensive end, so to speak, but he's doing things like hustling around the rim, setting good screens, right? Once again, moving around and putting himself in a position to help his team out in different areas that don't necessarily show up in the box score. But at the same time, this is not a guy that's going to be a two-way stalwart. So as great as Rudy Gobert has been on the defensive end and the impact that he's had, he's not going to apply the same pressure on the offensive end of a Patrick Ewing, of a Hakeem Olajuwon, a David Robinson. An elite defensive guy of that era was also an elite offensive player. So when we talk about Nikola Jokic's problems out there in the basketball court, if you look at the videos that I've been posting, the short clips, what have you been seeing from Nikola Jokic, guys? Is this switching style of basketball, and Nikola Jokic being put out there on an island, and Nikola Jokic not guarding anybody. How many plays did I post that Nikola Jokic looked like LeBron James out there, guarding space, guarding air? He's guarding no one. He's not within arm's distance of anybody. It doesn't look like he's focused on one particular player. He looks confused and befuddled. He looks like he doesn't know the assignment, like I just said. So what you're seeing is Julius Randle beating him off the dribble in these situations. Jaden McDaniels going by Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic not being able to bend his knees and slide his feet. So again, we go back to Kevin Durant's comments, and we talk about defense at the highest level, and we're talking about the NBA, and we're talking about guys acting as if defense is not important at the highest level of basketball to win a championship. You have to bend your knees and slide your feet. You have to get up and move faster. You can't be goofing around out there. Again, shout out to you guys. I know I'm rambling on here. Forgive me. Again, like I said, guys, I think the big story, like I told you guys, was the Ayo Dosunmu kid off the bench. Like I said, shot to Chi-Town. The Chicago Bulls traded this kid. He went out there and put in a performance. I told you, Nikola Jokic was outscored by a bench player that no one even knew of or heard of like that. And he put up a 40-point performance of 43 points last night on Nikola Jokic, who, again, like I told you, is supposed to be the greatest offensive player of all time. Shout out to Stan, 5387, 2537. Shout out to you. Shout out to John Petty for coming through. Yeah, that's right. Shout out to you guys out there, man. I see you guys and some of the things you're talking about. Yeah, Ghetto C the General. I know this is why I said to you guys that with Edwards going down for the series, this is the only reason why the Denver Nuggets are not completely out of the series. It's because of Nikola Jokic. Because of Anthony Edwards going down. And once again, we all know about DiVincenzo and, the role that he was playing. So shout out to him, what I'm saying? Props to him for what he's been doing. And like I said, it sucks that he went down with the Achilles, and he's done also. So the Minnesota Timberwolves are in trouble, even though they're up 3-1. This is a weird scenario, up 3-1, and you lost your best player and one of your key members. So you lost two starters, and one of those guys is your best player. So I said the Minnesota Timberwolves are in a weird position because they should be feeling really good about winning the last several games that they won, especially, I said last night, winning the game the way that they won it. At the same time, you still are not celebrating or feeling as good as you probably would have been feeling having Anthony Edwards on the basketball court, because as bad as Anthony Edwards has been, guys, I want you guys to think about something. I wrote some of these numbers down here. The Minnesota Timberwolves, guys, are up 3-1 on the Denver Nuggets, guys. Anthony Edwards on the series, guys, is averaging 18 points a game on 35% shooting, guys, and 25% from the three-point line. So again, the Minnesota Timberwolves are up 3-1 on the Denver Nuggets, and Anthony Edwards is averaging 18 points in these games. 18 freaking points, guys. It's not like Anthony Edwards has been averaging like 32 or 28, and he's been balling out, and the Minnesota Timberwolves have been pulling out some of these games because Anthony Edwards has been balling, and you want to point to Anthony Edwards being great. Anthony Edwards has not been great. Anthony Edwards has been bad to mediocre. If I told you, he's played solid defense, and I gave him props in the other game I told you I watched. But offensively, he's been terrible. Terrible offensively. And it's not about missing shots. I told you guys, great players miss shots. You're going to have a series where you're missing shots. No doubt. It's the type of shots that Anthony Edwards is taking and missing that I have a problem with on a consistent basis. So when we talk about what the Minnesota Timberwolves are doing, how the hell are you up 3-1 with your best player by far averaging 18 points a game on 35% shooting? All right, Julius Randle, all right, is averaging 17 points a game on 42% shooting, 18% from the three-point line. So again, the story of the Minnesota Timberwolves has been the other guys. It's been the McDaniels. It's been the Ayo Dosunmus, who's averaging 22 points a game in the series. 22. He's leading the Timberwolves in scoring. Out of control. It's insane. I mean, Robert M., shout out to you. That's right, man. They got rid of this dude, Dosunmu. It's crazy. A shout out to C. Penn. Yo, you know we had to cook the Jokic fans. You know we're going to get Scapper Tech, all these clowns out here promoting Jokic as the greatest offensive player of all time and a smarter basketball player than Michael Jordan. And these guys are the greatest and most skilled players of all time. And all this nonsense out here. Again, I don't see it. So when we talk about Randall and Anthony Edwards averaging what they're averaging in the teens on those low percentages, right? And then we talk about the Denver Nuggets. It's not as if the Minnesota Timberwolves are out here doing their thing. I told you, they have not been making shots either. The difference has been, I told you, the X factor of Dosunmu and the defensive consistency that we talked about from a Minnesota Timberwolves team. The Denver Nuggets were the 21st ranked defense this season, guys. All right? These kinds of things show up in the playoffs. In the regular season, when you're the number one offense, I told you they're number 2 all time in offensive rating this season. But in the regular season, when you go to the playoffs, that offensive rating ain't going to carry you to a championship. You're going to have to play some level of defense at some point in time. And the Denver Nuggets have not shown the ability to go out there and lock up these guys, stay in front of their men, slide their feet, and Nikola Jokic has been the problem. Yo, this guy is standing around. And like I said, they're coming right at him. I posted some of these videos. He's standing there. They're shooting shots. He's not even putting a hand up in their face to contest them or anything. Right in his face. So when we talk about the impact of your offensive abilities, the passing, that stuff is not there right now. He's averaging 4 turnovers a game and 7 assists. That's not Nikola Jokic MVP. That's not what I keep seeing from Scab Attack in his videos about the greatest 5-year stretch in the history of the league. Again, you promote the offensive stuff in the regular season. These guys only care about regular season. That's why they talk about MVPs. They don't never, you ever notice they never promote Nikola Jokic championships? They'll never say Nikola Jokic has to try to get a championship this year. He needs more finals MVPs. No, they're only concerned about him not winning a regular season award. And then they point to his numbers. Oh, look at the triple doubles. Where are all those numbers at when it matters most? Because another thing that we have to talk about before we get into the ending of the game, and we're going to talk about that cowardly display from Nikola Jokic last night at the end of the game. Dude, you had all that energy to go after McDaniels. Before we talk about that stuff, we have to also talk about where was Nikola Jokic in the fourth quarter of that game? Where was he in the fourth quarter? Hell, where was he in the second half? Where was he in the second half? You know, again, Nikola Jokic's great player. The promotion of him is where everyone looks stupid right now. And I told you, I've been on the money. Man, I've been proven it correct time and time again. I'm on the money with this Nikola Jokic stuff. This ain't personal with me and this dude. I don't give a damn about Nikola Jokic like that. Good for him for being a great player in his weak-ass era. I've told you this dude ain't winning no MVPs in the 90s. That's a fact. That's a fact, man. You're not winning MVP in the 90s, man. Don't get mad at me for coming out here and reporting on the honest truth, because I'm putting respect on the past eras, and I'm giving context and perspective to the hell out here. And don't come out here and tell me this fool's the greatest offensive player of all time when you're getting outscored by a bench player in a playoff game, a game freaking 5. A game 4, you get outscored, but you think Michael Jordan's getting outscored by Ayo Dosunmu? And there's no disrespecting him, but you're not outscoring Michael Jordan in a playoff scenario, my man, coming off the bench. It's insane. All right, like I said, when they're promoting him versus these other great scorers, this is where you guys get exposed. All the Scab Attack fans and all the Nikola Jokic fans. I mean, you can't compare him to Jordan. It doesn't make any sense. As I said, how did he get on Jordan's level? Nikola Jokic is should be nowhere being mentioned with Michael Jordan out here. That's the crazy stuff. Like I said, it's like the LeBron James thing. You went to bed, you woke up, you opened your eyes, and you felt something felt off, right? Like you didn't know, like you felt weird. And you turned on the TV, and they're telling you that Nikola Jokic is a greater player than Michael Jordan. And you change the channel, and you're like, wait, what? And then you go on to YouTube, and then you see these fools out here saying, yo, he's got the greatest 5-year run. Oh my God, he broke the NBA. We've never seen anything like this before. What the hell are y'all talking about? That's insane. You guys are not promoting the facts, and you're not putting context and perspective out there. So I told you, someone like Scab Attack, everything that I've heard him say about Nikola Jokic over the last 2 years, 3 years, or whatever long he's been on here, it contradicts all the Kobe Bryant's promotion. So Nikola Jokic must be greater than Kobe Bryant. Do you guys think that Nikola Jokic has surpassed Kobe Bryant in the all-time rankings? Do you guys believe that? Yo, shout out to my man NBA Sports News. Papa Yogito, right? You're not putting him above him, right? Are you guys putting Nikola Jokic above Kobe Bryant? I'm asking you guys out there. You guys better freaking answer me. All right? Because it's getting absolutely freaking ridiculous out here with the nonsense that we're talking about. All right? Because I told you, it's the promotion. We can celebrate Nikola Jokic. We can celebrate the players. But we don't have to, once again, make it historical all the time. Everything don't have to be historical. It don't have to be a historical thing. Why is it got to be a comparison? Nikola Jokic is not the greatest offensive player of all time. He's not the smartest basketball player of all time. If he was that smart, then how come he can't figure out Rudy Gobert? You're not figuring it out. This is 2 seasons, and this is 3 seasons out of 4 seasons they faced off. And you're having consistent problems here now. 3 games in a row against Rudy Gobert, but you're the smartest player of all time? It's like the Kevin Durant stuff that we laugh about. Oh, Kevin Durant, the most skilled scorer in NBA's history. Who is it? Is it Nikola Jokic or Kevin Durant? I mean, my freaking God here. This is laughable stuff. We got 2 goofs out here being called the greatest offensive players of all time. Kevin Durant, he's a basketball god. He can do anything. The man can't even get on the freaking court. Do means a basketball. The nerve for you to call yourself a god. This is where we are right now. This is where we are. Crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. Anthony Sublime, shout out to you. 8 of 24. Think about what you're saying right there. 2 Hall of Fame careers. Both numbers respected. Both numbers retired. Again, was Kobe Bryant perfect? Did he have bad shooting nights? Did he have bad games? Did he have a bad series? Did he win a championship every year? No. But again, people never question the Kobe Bryant's consistent effort that he gave. Is Kobe Bryant going to be the liability on the basketball court and the defensive end for your team? Are you going to be blaming Kobe Bryant for the lack of defensive effort and hustle for your team? Kobe Bryant has 5 championships. 5. People act like he won all 5 of those playing with Shaq. All 5. So again, however we feel about Kobe Bryant individually, however you feel about him, wherever you think he ranks, I'm telling you guys what, the reason I bring him up with the Scap Attack stuff is why. The promotion. We've done the live shows with Scap Attack in the past. He's broken down his top 10 list. He's given you the reasons why these guys are in the top 10. He's talked about where Kobe Bryant is ranked, why he has Kobe ranked that way, why he feels the way he feels about Kobe Bryant and his career. And Scap always falls back on the same things. What does he talk about? Kobe Bryant's overall game. We all know and respect Kobe Bryant's overall game. The two-way play of Kobe Bryant. The two-way play. Both sides of the ball. He talks about Kobe Bryant's competition. The 50-win teams that he beat in the playoffs. But you can't do the same for Nikola Jokic. Does he cry and moan that Kobe Bryant has won MVP and he should have won 5 in a row? And he needs that to validate Kobe Bryant's greatness? No, because Kobe Bryant doesn't need the MVPs. Because the MVP trophy and the arguments and the conversations and the debates that we have with other players regarding the MVPs that they won or haven't won always comes down to context. It always comes down to context. Again, like I've been telling you, and I've said before, what were the guys in the 50s playing for? What were they playing for? What were the guys in the 60s playing for? Or the 70s playing for? What were they playing for? There were no accolades to be won. George Mikan, right? Jumpin' Joe Folks. Bob Pettit for some of his years. Guys like Dolph Shays, the Neil Johnstons, right? Bill Russells, the Will Chamberlains, the Walt Clyde Fraziers, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbars, right? A lot of these early players, the great players, they never been accolades to win. They never been trophies to win. There were no finals MVPs for a lot of these guys or MVP trophies for a lot of these guys. There were no defensive player of the year awards or all defensive teams for a lot of these guys. What were they playing for? They were playing to freaking win. That was all there was. There was nothing else. There was no big shoe deals. There was no millions of dollars. There were no commercials for you. All you had was your game. All you had was your grit. All you had was your heart. All you had was your impact on the court. All you had was winning. That's all you had. You were playing the game to win, to compete. That's all there was. There was nothing else. There was no steals titles for a lot of these guys. There was no blocks titles for these guys. Once again, there were no fancy accolades and trophies to be won. All they had was the winning, the bragging rights in their games. That's all they had. Now everyone's out here worried about the MVP trophy. Oh, Nikola Jokic should have MVP. He should have won the MVP. And how do they argue and moan and cry for him? By crapping on the competition. Oh, SGA's not that great. Oh, this guy shouldn't win it. How many videos you seen Scap do trashing Anthony Edwards? And I've knocked Anthony Edwards. And Anthony Edwards ain't been great. But that's Nikola Jokic's competition, right? So again, if Anthony Edwards ain't that great, then who are the guys that Nikola Jokic is beating? Why does he always need 1 billion all-stars and he needs all this help they keep telling you? Oh, his team is not good enough. They're a lottery team. This guy's not that. He needs more help here. His coach ain't good enough there. Well, how's that Muppet-looking dude doing right now coaching the team? That dude look like a straight Muppet character. That dude Adelman from the Denver Nuggets, I don't know what the hell he's doing out there. Hey, my man, do you not see what the sumo is doing to you guys? Or you're not going to make adjustments? You're going to stand around and just watch this dude crap on your team all game long? Weird stuff from these guys. I don't get it. They should have been given Dosunmu the Anthony Edwards treatment. Whatever game plan you had for Anthony Edwards, I would have turned that game plan onto Dosunmu in the second half. That's what I would have told my guys. And again, I'm not a basketball savant. I'm not an NBA head coach. But that would have been my game plan. I would have told my guys at halftime, listen, we're going to do. Edwards is out. He's down. This guy, Dosunmu, we're not going to let him beat us. We're not, let Randall beat you. Let McDaniels him out. I'm not letting this dude beat us. So I just said we're going to give him the Anthony Edwards treatment in the second half. Whatever our game plan was for Anthony Edwards, we're going to put that game plan and focus it on him. That's not what I saw out there in the second half, because I told you I watched every single minute of the second half, and they made no adjustment on Dosunmu. This man was hitting floaters. He was hitting shots. He was stepping and walking right into these shots. Nikola Jokic never pressed up on him. They would set a screen, and Nikola Jokic always back there. Dude, that's a lack of your court awareness, situational awareness, and a player awareness. Do you not know and see what this guy's doing to you? He went 5 for 5 from three-point range, and Nikola Jokic standing back here with his hand down when he comes off the screen. Dude, what are you doing? You're supposed to be the high IQ player. You're supposed to be a savant of basketball, and you're not seeing what's going on right now. No one wanted to call time and be, yo, what are we doing out here, guys? The game plan was to do this, and we're not doing that. So again, I'm someone sitting on my couch watching this, and even I can see this stuff. And I'm like, why are they not doing anything? Why are you standing there? You're standing there. You're not going to just keep walking into three-point shots. You're not going to do that. But if they did, that's what he did. He literally did that, guys. He literally walked into every one of them shots. He was comfortable out there on the court. He was able to get to his spots. No one did anything. No one. And Nikola Jokic, where were you at, my man? Where you at? Where you at? You out there flopping around, flailing around. How many times I saw Nikola Jokic do this last night? How many times you saw Nikola? I watched it, guys. I watched it. I saw a lot of this. I saw a lot of this running down the court from Jokic. I saw him doing a lot of this last night. This is what I saw from Jokic last night. You can say I'm a hater. I saw what I saw. That's what he was doing. He was doing a Luka Doncic, faking and throwing himself. He did a play I posted, right? He faked the shot. Gobert went straight up, played good defense. He came straight down. Jokic tried to throw into him instead of trying to make the shot. He almost airballed it, and then he ended up flopping at the end of the play. I mean, laughable stuff. He's out there once again hunting for fouls, flailing around and whining, but then they'll talk about other players doing this. I told you, they don't have the same energy for Jokic when he does this nonsense on the basketball court. We saw him do this. I'm not making this stuff up, man. All right? Why do I gotta lie? I ain't gotta lie. I'm giving you the facts here. Don't come at me and cry and moan about me when you doing that stuff out there against Rudy Gobert and you flailing and flopping around and they cooking you up all over the damn court. They're actually coming after you. They're coming after Jokic on the defensive end. But I'm supposed to believe you would destroy Shaquille O'Neal. You would destroy these guys, these great centers at their peaks? You would not. This is laughable stuff. Laughable. So let's think about what Nikola Jokic did in the second half last night. What did he do in the second half last night? This man came out in the second half, guys, and went 1 for 10. You heard what the hell I said? Did you hear what the hell I said? Again, shout out to Mike Lowry. As I said, all you guys that continue to come through. Lionel Jones, shout out to you. Like I said, it means a lot, man. I said, thank you very much, Robert. You know I'm not lying here. I'm giving you guys the facts, man. All right? Listen, right. That's what we said. AOH, he understands. He's got to understand. There's no way AOH can't see this stuff. AOH is the czar of video footage. You know AOH sees this stuff. If we see it, he sees it. All right? But I told you, they don't want to call it out because Nikola Jokic has become the anti-LeBron James. So they always compare what he does to LeBron James. LeBron James is not the bar. That's what we keep telling people. He's the bar. LeBron James is not the bar. We shouldn't be comparing guys to LeBron James. Why are we saying, oh, does he do as bad as LeBron James? No, that's not what we should be saying. That's weak stuff. Weak. If he's supposed to be the anti-LeBron James, then we should be holding to a higher standard. A higher standard. Yo, DeAndre Durham, what up? Like I said, shout out to all you guys, man. So these are the facts out here. So again, what did he do in the second half last night in the Nikola Jokic? Oh, I think you guys said some supers. Oh, forgive me, guys. I didn't see supers, guys. Papa Yagito, shout out to you for coming through the super. Forgive me. I hope you're still here in the chat. I think we are seeing the birth of a new star in the Wolves. We will see when they go to Denver. Oh, that's a great point here. A great comment by Papa Yagito. Once again, shout out to you for coming through. And yeah, I mean, like I said, these are the kinds of things we talk about, right? It would be good to see a young player come out here like the Sumu and, find a home, right, on the Minnesota Timberwolves. And like I said, it's really sad that they won the game the way that they won it, and Anthony Edwards went down, DiVincenzo went down. Like, it's like, come on, man. Every time you turn around, right? Like, Victor Wembanyama went down. Jalen Williams went down for the OKC Thunder, right? Like, Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves are down, right? Kevin Durant is down. Like, everyone's down. Like, guys are just going down all the time. So it's really sad to see Anthony Edwards go down, because it would be great to see, like, what I'm hoping that the Minnesota Timberwolves don't do, and I think they might be forced to do it. I don't know. But I'm hoping that they don't put him in the starting position. Like, don't put him in the starting lineup, to replace Anthony Edwards and DiVincenzo. They might be forced to put him in the starting lineup. And sometimes that can hurt a player like that, right? Like, you become accustomed to coming off the bench and being a bench player, right? One of those kinds of guys in a reserve role type of a deal where you don't have that kind of pressure on you, right? Or expectations. And then all of a sudden now, because of the injuries, they may be forced to start him. So I'm hoping that if they do start him, that it doesn't affect his mindset or, the way his approach to the game. And I just don't know how it won't. So hopefully, like I said, if it does, change his approach or whatever, it changes it in a positive way. Because like I said, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the way that they've been playing overall, I told you, the consistent effort they've been giving on defense, they've been the better team. So if the Denver Nuggets win this series, we can most certainly point to the injury to Anthony Edwards as the story as to why they were able to come back and beat the Minnesota Timberwolves. Once again, a shout out to you guys, man. I said it means a lot. Shout out to Papa Yagito becoming a member. Like I said, you guys truly humble me to see you guys come through like this. Like I said, on a Sunday, I hope you guys are having a good weekend or having a good weekend. I hope your Sunday's going good. I said, you guys know I had to do a live today. I told you I wanted to do a live yesterday. I wanted to do a live early this morning. But life, it gets in the way sometimes. So I appreciate you guys spending some time with me right now. Shout out to John Pettit for coming through with the super. Wait, Robin, get ready for the excuse. Jokic has no help. Jokic is maybe a little better than Steve Novak. Some of the comparisons you guys hit me with are real funny. Shout out to my man, John Pettit, for coming through as always. You know what you say is interesting here. What you're talking about with the Jokic has no help. And this was one of the points that I was hearing a lot from the Scap Attack side of things, and some of the Jokic fan base that really, made me focus on Jokic or think about, what he's actually doing on the basketball court and the actual team overall. I've never once said that Jokic has a bunch of help, right? We've never promoted Nikola Jokic having all this help or playing with a stacked team and he's not getting it done with all this help. What we've talked about is, one, they never promote Nikola Jokic for making his teammates greater. If you're that smart, you're that great, all this stuff, then there has to be some level of impact around you for your team, right? He's never led the Nuggets to a 60-win season, right? They've never been a top defensive team where he's anchoring a great defense, right? So when you talk about the overall team and what they've been doing and the excuses they've made, let's think about Jamal Murray. Me and Scap went back and forth on a live show like a year and a half, 2 years ago, whenever it was. Me and Scap went back and forth on the live, and I told him, because I said that Jamal Murray was an all-star caliber player. Caliber being the key word here. Caliber player. This was 2 seasons ago. And Scap Attack proceeded to cry and moan and tell me that he's not an all-star caliber player. And I told him Jamal Murray is absolutely an all-star caliber player, because we all recognize and realize that the reason why he had never really made an all-star selection up until that point was due to injuries throughout his career. He hasn't been durable. That's the one thing that we won't deny about Jamal Murray. He has had problems staying healthy throughout his career. However, when he's been on the court and the Denver Nuggets have been in the playoffs and Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic have been there, when they have been formidable, Jamal Murray was formidable also. It wasn't just Jokic carrying Murray and the players. Murray was just as formidable. I told you in the conference finals, when they won the championship, he averaged 30. He didn't average 20 or 23. He averaged 30 plus on 50, 40, 90 shooting splits. So as the second guy, that's what he did. So again, when you talk about what he's doing in the series now, let's think about this, John Pettit. Jamal Murray has scored 30 points in 3 of the 4 games, guys. 30 points. Now, again, Nikola Jokic has not been great in the series, and we're going to talk about some of the numbers right now. And Jamal Murray has not been great in the series. So when you talk about shooting the basketball, they have not been great percentage-wise because the Minnesota Timberwolves have been playing hellified defense on them, consistently making them take tough shots, right? Making the Denver Nuggets offense look stagnant. Remember, they're not even getting that many assists, the Denver Nuggets. I talked about that. So Jamal Murray has scored 30 points in 3 of the 4 games, and Nikola Jokic has not scored 30 once in any of the games. And he's supposed to be, I told you, no one's promoting Jamal Murray as the greatest player of all time. No one's promoting Jamal Murray as the greatest scorer of all time. Not even close to this stuff, guys. Not even close. No one's promoting Jamal Murray like this. So again, I have no problem with Jamal Murray. He's not being promoted this way. You guys are promoting Jokic, but you're being outscored by your teammate. That's tantamount to us telling you that Michael Jordan is the greatest scorer of all time, and why he's the greatest scorer of all time, but he's out there being outscored by Pippen in these playoff scenarios. Now, granted, Jamal Murray is more of a scorer than Scottie Pippen was, but there was never a point in time when Michael Jordan was on the court in a playoff scenario, and you're like, damn, he might be outscored by Scottie Pippen or a teammate in general. So when you're talking about the comparisons to a Michael Jordan, which they're making, which to me is insane that I'm even comparing Jordan to Jokic, but this is where we are. That would never happen to Michael Jordan. I told you, he would never be outscored by a bench player on the opposing team. Remember, the Nuggets are the 3 seed, the Minnesota Timberwolves are the 6 seed, but the Denver Nuggets are the 21st ranked defense, and that's what you're seeing right now. So let's deal with the numbers for Nikola Jokic in this series, because again, that's how they promote him. Again, thank you very much, all you guys out there that continue to come through. Dana Green, shout out to you for always coming through. Murray dropped 50 in the bubble. He's been doing this for a while, and he talks junk to other players. No, you're right. Jamal Murray has been a clutch type performer. I told you guys, he was the runner-up for the clutch player of the year this season. I believe Nikola Jokic was the runner-up for the clutch player of the year last season. So I think we've all recognized, or I think a lot of us understand, that Jamal Murray is a clutch time performer. Yes, he hasn't been durable. He's been inconsistent at times with the jump shot. Absolutely. That's how scores are sometimes, especially scores like Jamal Murray. But the one thing that can't be denied is that he's been a clutch time performer for the Denver Nuggets consistently in the playoffs. So when you talk about what he's been doing, and we talk about Jokic has been doing, I told you, with the way he's promoted for the series, all right, Nikola Jokic is on 39% shooting right now. He's shooting 39% for the series, guys. For the series. All right? So when we talk about, what he's doing on the court, and they promote Nikola Jokic, as this elite level shooter and efficient, because he is. He's an elite, efficiently player. When you talk about the regular season and the kinds of shots that he can make and how he makes these shots, and it's almost like he never misses, it seems, in a lot of these games. No doubt about it. The man's shooting 39% in the series, though. 39%. It's not going to get it done. That's not MVP. That's not even bad. That's really bad. When you're 7 feet tall and you're shooting 39%, that's horrendous. He's shooting 18% from the three-point line, guys. Guys, you know what I said? He's shooting 18% from the three-point line in the series. Not last night, in the series. So, when you talk about the overall game for Nikola Jokic, I told you there's no impact there. He has 16 turnovers in the series, averaging 4 turnovers per game. So you talk about the lack of offensive rebounding for Nikola Jokic in the series. I believe he's averaging 2 offensive rebounds per game, which is not bad or horrendous, but it's not good. It's not what he normally does. So when you talk about the impact and the things that he's not doing on the court, you don't play defense. That's the problem here, right? So you can't even fall back on your defense and your defensive impact. No, you can't do that. So you're not making shots, right? I told you, think about all the shots that Denver Nuggets are missing. The team for the series is shooting 40%. 40% of the team for the series, all right? So the team is shooting 40% of the series. That shows you they're missing a lot of shots. And you're not offensive rebounding the basketball at a high level when you really should be the most dominant rebounder out there, but you're not. So when you talk about what he's doing out there on the basketball court, I told you, this is why the problems are the problems that we have. When you think about last night, I told you guys last night, he was 1 for 10 in the second half. He was 0 for 3 from the three-point line in the second half. What did he do in the fourth quarter last night, Nikola Jokic, on the offensive end? Because remember, this is all meanwhile, he's not playing a lick of defense out there. All meanwhile is going on. Yo, the token black guy, shout out to you. I'm telling you guys right now. So, in the fourth quarter, Jokic was 0 for 6 last night, guys. 0 for 6 in the fourth quarter. 0 for 6 last night. Yo, Mark Book, what up? Shout out to you for coming through. That's what I'm saying, man. Exactly. Paying these players like KD and Jokic the $40 million a year and getting that crap in the playoffs when you really need to set up. Yo, I'm telling you guys right now, it's crazy right now. I told you, especially when they promote these guys and they pump these guys up and they talk about how tough these guys are, bigger, stronger, faster, the more skilled era, all this stuff. I told you the game is hard to watch sometimes. I told you, you see, great basketball sometimes out there, but sprinkled in, you get bonehead basketball, you get low IQ basketball, you get silly, goofy basketball, you get no adjustments from coaches. Like I said, you get players just doing stupid stuff out there on the basketball court. Guys doing the same thing, so there's no originality or creativity on the court. Right? The game overall doesn't have a bounce or a flow to it. Right? I mean, the league overall. So, when we talk about what's going on, shout out to Hit 'em. What up, man? Shout out to you. It's crazy how, we think about what's going on. I told you, Nikola Jokic going 0 for 6 in the fourth quarter, 0 for 2 from the three-point line in the fourth quarter. 2 turnovers. He scored 4 points at the free throw line in the fourth quarter last night, guys, in a game that the Denver Nuggets could have won. So when we talk about it's not just your numbers or lack of numbers or the shooting percentages that I'm telling you guys, it's everything combined. Because on top of all of that, that's what you're supposed to be doing at a high level. You're not doing that, so what else are you doing? You're not playing defense. So again, this is what we talk about. Other great players, the other great quote-unquote big men of other eras, they were able to impact the game on a defensive end. So if Patrick Ewing is, having a night like this, right? Because Patrick Ewing had nights like this too, man, where he's missing shots. Patrick Ewing took jump shots. He took perimeter shots. Then he missed some of this stuff, right? But he could fall back on the rebounds, on the blocking of the shots, on the defense and anchoring of the New York Knicks. So the Knicks could fall back on their defense some nights. So yeah, maybe they're not scoring, but you ain't going to score either. So again, this is what we're talking about, the impact, right? The David Robinsons, the Hakeems, the Robert Parishes, right? These guys had more of an impact on the defensive end. So you can fall back on your defense, right? Your defense can help you on the offensive end, right? You're getting tip-ins maybe, right? Or you're getting a good defensive play, so it hypes you up for the offensive end. Maybe you get a blocked shot. It gets it ignites a transition. So now you're getting down the court on a transition, right? This gets you going in the game. All of a sudden now, you get a couple of transition dunks, you block a couple of shots, or you alter a couple of layups at the rim, you make a couple of key defensive plays, and it ignites your offense. This is what happens. This is what the great players can do at that position. That's the guys that I remember growing up watching. That's what they did. This is not nostalgia here. This is not me giving you my emotions or some weird feeling. I'm giving you a breakdown of how the great centers and big men impacted the game at the highest of levels. Remember, we're not comparing Nikola Jokic to the lesser guys. He's a 3-time MVP winner, guys. He's an NBA champion. He's one of the great players in the history of the game. So we're comparing him against the other great players. But when you do that, again, this is what you show and prove, right? That he would not be able to play at that level with those guys. With those guys. So I believe he would be a really good player in the 90s, but he's not winning an MVP, right? He's not going to be an MVP candidate, but he'd be a really good player. All right, to me, he would be a guy that would maybe make, 5 all-star teams or something like that. If he played, every year in the 90s, maybe half of those seasons he might make an all-star team. But you're going to be battling against all these other great players. Remember, it's about the competition, guys. This is not my feeling here. It's not my feelings. That's the way it was. That's the way it was. We cannot allow people to try and make it seem like it wasn't that way. It happened. It's over. They played the game the way that they did it. We can't change it now. We can't go back and say, yeah, Jokic would dominate Shaq, and then you see what he does. And I know and I saw what Shaq did. We're taking away from Shaq. And listen, man, and we've set the record straight on Shaq on this channel. But again, it's context and perspective, and there's levels here. Levels. Whatever Shaq did or didn't do in his career, the facts remain. His competition was much, much more fierce. Much, much more fierce. That's not my feeling. That's the way it was. That's the way it was. That's why Shaq don't win no MVPs in the 90s. That's why Shaq don't make All-NBA first team until 1998. Right? That's why. Because when you're in the NBA, with Prime Ewing and Prime Hakeem and Prime Robinson, right? And guys that are still there in the league, like an older Robert Parrish. But you have other great centers in the game, like Brad Daugherty, still in the league, right? You have the Dikembe Mutombos coming in the league, right? You have Alonzo Mourning coming in the league with you. When you're going against all this competition at these positions, then it doesn't allow you to get easy MVP trophies over Michael Jordan, right? Or over Charles Barkley or Karl Malone or any of the other guys, man. It was just too much competition. It's just fierce. Again, we're trying to act as if Shaq could not run up and down the court. Shaq was a fantastic athlete when he first came. The first 6, 7, 8 years of Shaq's career, this man was out there. Like, are you kidding me? Go look at some of the games. Go watch some of the games of Shaq on the Orlando Magic. Go watch some of the games of Shaq on the Lakers, man, before he became Hollywood in that second and that three-peat on that second, third championship. Are you kidding me? Nikola Jokic wouldn't be able to run up and down the court with Shaq. Just that alone put you in foul trouble. He can't run with Gobert. All right, again, Shaq on the offensive end is going to force Nikola Jokic to play legit defense on him. Shaq is going to be drop-stepping the hell out of him. And Nikola Jokic's a big dude, man. He's a big body. But, you're going to be in trouble because you're going to be forced. Rudy Gobert's not going to force you to guard him in the post. He's not going to force you. He's going to force you to be aware of him on the offensive rebounds, right? Because he's going to be active on the tip-ins and those kinds of things. And he's going to move around under the rim to try to get available for an alley-oop dunk or a little scoop pass or one of these things. But he's not going to back you down in the post. He's not going to face you up and do anything to you. People ain't got skills like that. The big men I grew up watching, again, these guys had skills, man. They had post-up games. Shaq had skills. Shaq wasn't a goof. He was, guys, I talked about Victor Wembanyama the other day. And I talked about the size of Victor Wembanyama's feet. And I talked about how goofy he looks on the court at that size with those feet and those skinny legs. And I said he looks discombobulated. You ever see Shaq's feet, guys? When I was a kid, they had Shaquille O'Neal's sneaker in a glass case in I think it was a Modell's I went to. And Shaq's shoe was in there, his real shoe. His thing was massive. Massive. You ever see Shaq's legs? You ever see Shaq's body? Did Shaq ever look goofy to you on the court? No. Shaq had excellent footwork for a man that size. Are you guys kidding me? Are we going to knock Shaquille O'Neal now? Now Shaq wasn't that great because he's fat now? No, he's fat. Shaq was fat. Shaq was slow. No, he wasn't. No, he was not. He absolutely was not. This man was grabbing boards. He was blocking shots. My problem with Shaq, and a lot of us know, is that Shaq let himself fall off. He never maintained that consistent level of defense and rebounding. He should have been greater a rebounder and shot blocker and defender for his career, but he wasn't consistent. But when Shaq, I told you those first 7, 8, 9 years, come on, man. Are we going to sit here and act this dude was a two-way player? He was dominant. Shaq was a very good passer out of the post. They doubled and triple teamed the man, and he was always hitting the open man Shaq. He was a very good passer out of the double team Shaq. He wasn't a Nikola Jokic at the top of the key. No doubt about it. Right? He's not going to be dropping those bounce passes and stuff like that. But Shaq was excellent out of the post in the double team, passing the ball out. He absolutely was, man. I'm just giving you guys the facts here. All right? I'm giving you guys the facts. I told you guys, Shaq was outstanding. I mean, sensational. Shaq, to me, had the potential to be the greatest player of all time. I've told you, Shaq's work ethic is what ultimately, put him into question. He wasn't able to stay durable. To me, Shaq's prime should have been longer. And when you think about his defensive impact, and I told you, his rebounding and stuff like that, to me, he should have been more dominant in those areas for a longer period of time. But we're not going to sit here and trash Shaquille O'Neal, the Nikola Jokic fans I'm talking about, and talk about Shaq as if he was like I said, like he was Brad Daugherty or somebody like that. And I had no knock on Brad Daugherty, all right? But damn it, man, I told you, the era that Shaq played in, just when he first came in the league, this dude came in the fire, going against the elite of the elite at the center position as a rookie. I told you, Nikola Jokic went off and faced off against Enes Freedom in the playoffs. Enes Freedom, and his team lost. Enes Freedom What do you think Enos Freedom doing to Shaquille O'Neal, man? You got people out here talking about Greg Ostertag locking up Shaquille O'Neal. This is what Nikola Jokic fans say about Shaquille O'Neal. I saw somebody in the comment section of one of my posts say that Shaquille O'Neal was getting schooled by Vlade Divac. Oh, I mean, not Shaq, excuse me, Hakeem Olajuwon was getting schooled by Vlade Divac. Hakeem Olajuwon getting schooled by Vlade Divac now. This is what we're doing now? Again, they try to throw out some random narrative and just throw out some guy's name. Oh, yeah, he's going to beat Vlade Divac. What? So Vlade Divac was the best player in the Lakers? I'm pretty sure it was Magic Johnson, wasn't it? It really was. But though we're talking about 1990 and 1991, Hakeem is going to beat Vlade Divac because Vlade Divac is killing Hakeem Olajuwon. See, and this is my problem we're talking about. Even if you want to point out, right, or talk about another player, this is what they do, right? They try to always pump up or promote or mention another player in a negative way to try to, to invalidate the point you made. You do a video on Nikola Jokic, they're trashing Shaquille O'Neal in the comment section. What the hell does Shaq got to do with this stuff? Or they're talking about Shaq. Nikola Jokic out here struggling against Rudy Gobert. Let's talk about Hakeem Olajuwon now. Don't make no sense. I posted the other day about Shaquille O'Neal in his career, right? I asked you guys, I put a poll out. How many three-point shots did Shaquille O'Neal make in his career? Right? And I put several options there. And shout out to all you guys that continue to, like I said, interact with me on these polls and stuff like that. And I had 4 options there. 1, 3, 2, 0, or 5. And the answer was 1. Shaquille O'Neal made 1 3-point shot in his career. 1. I was even shocked that he made 1. I thought that he had not made any. But the main point was I never thought about that. I never once thought to myself, oh, Shaquille O'Neal, I wonder how many threes he made in his career because, he couldn't play an overall game. Shaq couldn't shoot, man. He wasn't shooting no threes. I was amazed that Shaq even made a 3, that he even took, several threes in his career because, again, this was not the kind of game that Shaquille O'Neal played. This was not the way the game was played in the NBA when Shaq played in the NBA. And guys like Shaquille O'Neal played their role, and they played it masterfully. Masterfully. When you talk about Shaquille O'Neal, does anybody think about Shaquille O'Neal facing you up on the perimeter and putting the ball on the floor and making a weird move on the perimeter? No one thinks about Shaquille O'Neal that way. When I think about Shaquille O'Neal, I think about someone that's going to put you down low and is going to hurt you down low. And if you ain't ready to bring it against Shaquille O'Neal, then you ain't going to be in for a long night. And the dudes that went against Shaquille O'Neal, those dudes were legit. Shaq wasn't going against no soft-ass dudes, man. He wasn't going against Joel Embiid. He wasn't going against Rudy Gobert every night. He was going against Alperen Sengun or Isaiah Hartenstein, right? Or any of these other guys, man. Jaren Jackson Jr. He wasn't going against Brook Lopez. He wasn't going against these kinds of players. Guys, want you the facts, man. These are the facts. So, what we saw last night and what we see from the Denver Nuggets is that they're going to have to play a certain level of consistent basketball. And what we've seen from Nikola Jokic and his fan base and the promotion of Nikola Jokic, it don't hold up. It doesn't hold up, guys. And remember, that's the main thing that we have to understand here. And that's the main point that I've been trying to make over the last couple of seasons that I've been doing some of this stuff. And you guys have continued to support me and continue to tell me that I need to take a harder look at this stuff. I remember people a couple of years ago, right, telling me a couple of seasons ago that I need to start paying more attention to Nikola Jokic. These are comments I was getting. Oh, sports and fitness rants, man. You got to pay more attention to Nikola Jokic. You have to really watch the Denver Nuggets games because he flops around a lot too. He does XYZ a lot too. And I didn't think he was doing that stuff. I did not think that. And I said in my videos several times, oh, Nikola Jokic don't play like that. And I said that many times. Nikola Jokic would never flop like this guy, or he would never do this like this dude. And then I started watching some of the games more consistently. And what I started to see is that he was doing a lot of the same stuff. Was he doing it just as much as X player or that player? Maybe not. But he was still doing it, and they always promoted the other guys for doing the things that he was also doing. But then when you try to point this stuff out, guys get real quiet. So, when we think about the where we are right now in the series, I didn't say the series is over. I told you guys in the video the other day, I'm not saying the series is over. The Denver Nuggets are in big trouble. But with Anthony Edwards out for the series, again, if you guys don't know, if you're just tuning in, Anthony Edwards is out for the series. He's out for several weeks. So the Minnesota Timberwolves are in trouble here. All right, they are in trouble. Even though the Ayo Dosunmu kid is, like I said, he's a bright spot here, and maybe he can continue this, quote unquote magic that is going on right now. It's going to be interesting what they do with him, either putting him into the starting lineup like I was mentioning before, or leaving him as a reserve player, and what impact that will have on his overall approach and his overall game. And what kind of fire are the Denver Nuggets going to come out with? Now, let's talk about the main thing that I wanted to talk about here. And we'll leave after this. But we have to talk about the ending of the game last night. We got to talk about the end of the game last night, guys. All right? So, again, shout out to all you guys that continue to come through. Stan, what up to you, man? Yeah, Rick Smith was a good player, too. And Nikola Jokic would have been, I told you guys, I compared Nikola Jokic to Brad Daugherty, right? And the reason why I compared him to Brad Daugherty, not only were their body types similar and the way they moved on the court was very similar, but if you guys remember Brad Daugherty's game, he was one of the best passing big men, if not the best passing big men, when he was in the NBA doing his thing. Remember, his NBA career was cut short due to the, I believe it was the back injury that he sustained. But if you guys remember Brad Daugherty's game, he had a very nice touch, very good free throw shooter like Nikola Jokic. He can knock down the perimeter shot. No, he wasn't going to shoot threes. They didn't play that kind of game. But he was an excellent passer. He actually led the NBA all centers in assists. I want to say 3 years in a row, from like 90 to 92 or something like that, if I remember correctly. So somewhere around there, Brad Daugherty was always consistently leading the big men in assists every single season. So when you look at his overall game, that's I think that was a comparable a comparison. And Brad Daugherty was never known for his defensive prowess or shot blocking or any of those kinds of things. I'm sorry, guys. My wife was texting me here. Oh, sorry, guys. My fault. My wife was texting me. So anyway, yeah, so that was why, to me, the comparison was there. So if you guys don't know, again, the end of the game, like I said, it was a great win for the Minnesota Timberwolves, man. They were riding high, even though they lost 2 key members. They were riding high, and they should feel really good. I told you, the Minnesota Timberwolves, shout out to anybody that's a true Minnesota Timberwolves fan that's been dealing with a lot of the Minnesota Timberwolves have never been to the finals, right? So, if you're a true Minnesota Timberwolves fan and you've, seen this franchise for several seasons now, shout out to all you guys out there, anyone out there in Minnesota, because, like I said, it was a really great win. At the end of that game, there was only seconds to go. And I posted 2 different angles, 2 different videos on the shorts version on my channel of this clip at the end with Jay McDaniels. So if you guys did not see the clip, you guys can go back and watch the clip at the end of the game, and then you see, the little brouhaha that broke out at the end of the game that was, initiated, I guess, instigated by Jay McDaniels and escalated by Nikola Jokic. Let's look at it that way. To me, that's how it broke down. That's how it went down. Jaden McDaniels instigated it, and Nikola Jokic escalated it. All right? And in my line of work, you guys know I work security. I used to work as a correction officer. So in my line of work, it was always about de-escalating, right? De-escalation is always a big thing, right? You want to try to get things calmed down, right? You maybe have an angry parent or something like that, or a student, something's going on, and you have to de-escalate the situation, right, at certain times, sometimes out there. And when you look at the play last night, I want to say this off the top. When we talk about scoring a basket the way that Jay McDaniels scored the basket, I'll say this. Would I have done that? Would I have wanted if I was coaching, would I want my team to do something like that? No. However, I understand why Jay McDaniels did. I told you he was instigating something. Remember, there's a rivalry here. There's a personal thing and a personal attachment to this series. Whether the Denver Nuggets think it's personal or not, or the fans feel that way or not, it's irrelevant. You can actually tell and you can see on the court, there's a certain personal tone, right, and level of personal thing here between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Denver Nuggets. And obviously, Jaden McDaniels feels that way. He's doing a lot of talking. And he went out there over the last couple of games and he backed up his mouth. So I always tell you guys on my channel what? If you're going to run your mouth, I got no problem with that stuff. If you're going to showboat, I got no problem with this stuff. But then you got to back it up. You got to back it up. You got to. Because if you don't, then I'm coming after you. I'm coming after you, man. You can't go out there and run your mouth. You can't go out there and showboat and act like this and act like that. You can't be a front runner. And then all of a sudden, you don't back it up. You don't show up when it matters most. And Jaden McDaniels backed it up and has backed it up. They got one more game to win. But he's backed it up over the last several games. And last night, he added a new wrinkle to the rivalry. So, again, I would not have done that, what Jaden McDaniels did. And I don't think what he did was necessarily in the spirit of basketball, in the spirit of competition. However, like I said, I understand why he did it, and I'm not mad that he did it. My problem is with Nikola Jokic and the reaction to Jaden McDaniels when you had no energy like that. Once again, the title of this live stream is that you had no energy for Jaden McDaniels or Rudy Gobert or Julius Randle or any freaking body. Definitely the sumo kid. You had no energy for his ass, but you had all that energy at the end of the game with 1 second left on the clock. There was 1 second left when Jaden McDaniels hit that layup. I think there was 1.3 seconds left. So again, I do not think that was a play that he should have made. That was a knucklehead play to me, and he was being a knucklehead in that moment, Jaden McDaniels. And again, I understand why he was being an instigator. And Nikola Jokic, he fell for the banana in the tailpipe. He fell for the banana in the tailpipe. There's really no other way to slice that. You fell for the banana in the tailpipe, dude. Banana in the tailpipe. Because again, you look like the fool here. With Jaden McDaniels right, no, we can say they were both wrong, right? But again, Nikola Jokic looks worse. You look worse. Because what do you look like here? What does Nikola Jokic look like? He looks like a sore loser, right? I see some of you guys mention in the chat. He looks like a sore loser in that moment. All right. Once again, shout out to you guys who have come through. Shout out to my man John Pett who come through the super says Murray game is similar to Brunson, but giving Brunson a slight edge. Jokic always had help. Oh, that's an interesting comparison. Brunson and Murray. I told you guys before, I think the comparison between them two would be in the fact that I do not believe that Murray or Brunson are a number one guy. And I've told you guys that's my problem with the New York Knicks is that they have two number two guys, in my opinion, leading them. And to me, Karl-Anthony Towns is not a number one guy, and neither Jalen Brunson. The one thing I do respect, and the one thing that I think, John Pett, you're right on with this stuff, is their play style as far as, the kind of way that they score the basketball with a lot of perimeter jump shots and mid-range shots, off the dribble type stuff. But you talked about their clutch play, right? If you talk about the clutch play between Brunson and Murray, I believe that they're both clutch time performers. I do believe Brunson is a clutch time performer. He's proven to be a clutch time shooter and shot maker. The problem for someone like a Brunson ultimately comes down to not only his size, but his lack of impact on the defensive end and sometimes the decision making for some of these players. The other night, Brunson could not finish at the end of the Knicks game. They didn't even get a shot off at the end of that game. That was a terrible ending for the New York Knicks. Jalen Brunson dribbled into the corner, dribbled into the baseline, and dribbled into the no man's land. So to me, it was low IQ basketball. And again, you're not playing smart and getting to your spot in that moment. And the Knicks end up losing, even though they did redeem themselves and come back yesterday. Shout out to John Pettit. Shout out to Jesse Glassager for coming through. Jeff Rulin is the best Jokic comp. Look him up. Yeah, shout out to Jesse Glassager for coming through and mentioning someone like Jeff Rulin. I would not have known who Jeff Rulin is if Jeff Rulin didn't knock Michael Jordan on his butt. The first game of his NBA career when they played against the Washington Bullets. You guys remember when Michael Jordan fell hard on his backside going for that dunk attempt? It was Jeff Rulin who actually put him down hard. Not intentional or, trying to hurt Michael Jordan. That's just the way the game was. It was a play Michael Jordan trying to put a poster on somebody, and you're trying to go in there with the big bodies, and, you fall down, and Michael Jordan fell pretty hard, but he ended up not being hurt severely. But that's why I know who Jeff Rulin is. So shout out to Jesse Glassager for coming through. Like I said, shout out to all you guys. So again, Joshua Mars, like I said, it was embarrassing for Nikola Jokic to attack Jaden McDaniels that way with all that fervor and all that gusto when you had no gusto or energy throughout the game. Like, you should have slapped Jaden McDaniels in the beginning of the game, or the other game, I thought. Because remember, he was talking trash about none of them can play defense, okay? Like, I would have came out in that next game, or if Nikola Jokic, if I was Nikola Jokic, and McDaniels came in there for a layup or a layup attempt, or these guys were trying, man, I'd have been in there putting bodies on dudes. I'd have earned some of them fouls. I'd have been, you're going to feel me tonight. Y'all going to feel me. I'm going to go out there and try to block every shot. Like, where's your pride at? That's what I'm saying with Nikola Jokic. I mean, Nikola Jokic has never blocked a single, has never averaged one or more blocks in a season in his career. Never once. Even Luke Longley averaged over a block in a season before in his career. When Luke Longley was on the 96 Bulls, he averaged 1.4 blocks per game that season. Right? And everyone trashes Luke Longley. And I'm not comparing Luke Longley to Nikola Jokic. When I'm talking to you guys about the blocks per game, right? And the impact of the big men back in the day. Every big man could block shots or have an impact or attempt to try to block shots, to have some kind of presence down low. Whether you're just standing there putting your hands up under the rim, whether you're like a Jeff Rulin and you're putting body on dudes, or Luke Longley, or you're an elite shot blocker or defensive player. But how many plays did I see last night? Nikola Jokic standing there with his hands down, and guys are hitting floaters in his face. They're going for layups, and he's just slapping at the ball, not trying to block it, trying to slap it down low. And they'll be, Nikola Jokic averaged 1 point something steals per game. He was in the top 10 in steals. This era's a joke with steals per game. You can win the NBA steal title by averaging like 1.9 steals per game or like 2 steals per game. Guys, again, you're not winning a steal title in the 90s or these other eras when they started keeping and tracking these stats at 2 per game. It's not happening, guys. I mean, I told you, we told you about the blocks in this game, in this era, the rebounds. Nikola Jokic, he won the assist title at 10 assists per game, guys. You're not doing that in the 90s, guys. You're going to beat John Stockton or Magic Johnson or Isaiah Thomas in assists. No, you're not. You're going to average more assists than Jason Kidd or Steve Nash. No, you're not, because those were legit point guards. Mark Jackson, these are legit passers. Kevin Johnson. You're not going to beat those guys in assists per game. It's laughable stuff. You're not averaging more rebounds than Barkley or Rodman or Robinson or Olajuwon, because not only are you not going to average that many rebounds to beat them, but you're going to average less than what you're averaging now, because you're going to be going against different competition for the rebounds. So even if you're averaging 11, 12, 13 rebounds in this era, in the other eras, that translates to 9 rebounds, maybe 10 rebounds. The 10 assists that he averaged this season. You translate that to the 90s, that's maybe 7 assists, guys, not 10. So again, what are we doing here? We're not doing anything. We're not talking about anything. What we're talking about is the facts. And the facts remain. Nikola Jokic went out there and chased this dude down at the end of the game and looked like a straight fool. I told you, fell for the banana in the tailpipe after this dude, once again, he basically baited you into getting emotional, and you look like a sore loser, dude. You look like a real sore loser here. That's how you look. Instead of being like, all right, you want to do that? I'm going to make a mental note of this. And the next game, I'm going to come after you. That's what Jokic should do. He should take it personal. And he should be like, all right, dude, you want to come out and hit that layup at the end? I would have went right to the locker room. And I would have been like, yo, I would have got all my teammates, and I'd be like, yo, you saw that fool go out there and hit that layup at the end of the game, right? You saw what he did. You see they don't respect us. That's what I told my teammates. I'd have been like, yo, they don't show us no respect. No respect. I was like, you saw what he did? I want the next game is personal. We're going to come out next game, and y'all better be ready, or I'm going to do it myself. That's what I told them, my teammates. That's what he should have done. That's what a leader would have did. But instead, you get all emotional, and you cry. In that moment, you get ejected with 1 second left. You look like a goof, a straight goof. You had no energy all game long. I'm watching you stand around like LeBron James. But at the end of the game, you want to start getting on people? It's laughable, man. Don't tell me greater than Kareem. Don't tell me greater than Moses Malone. I'm not listening to it. I told you. It's like the LeBron James stuff. I told you guys from the start. Day one, I was on here doing this stuff. When I started doing these kinds of videos. LeBron James ain't never been top 10. He's not going to be. He's not worthy of it. He's not worthy of it. I don't give a damn on this. Like, he ain't worthy of it. So they promote this clown who ain't worthy. Nikola Jokic, they promote the MVPs that he won, and they promote what he should have won. Oh, he should have won this many. He's the best player the last 5 years, the greatest run ever. The man's got 1 championship in his career, but he's the greatest player of all time. They cry and moan that people will call Michael Jordan the greatest of all time before he won. The man was doing things we ain't never seen before in one of the toughest eras to do this stuff. Haven't we all acknowledged that the NBA has become a sissified version of itself? So we're promoting a great player in the most sissified version, and then we promote him so much that we say he would dominate those guys. He would dominate the other legit eras that we keep saying are not, that this era's not on par with. So how can the era not be on par, but the great player from the era is greater than those guys? That doesn't make sense. It doesn't. When you think about everything we talked about, what did we mention? Right? And we talked about Rudy Gobert today. He's a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year award winner, guys. And again, this is not a day to take away from Rudy Gobert because he's proving and earning, his reputation out here in this series. He absolutely is. But what we've highlighted for Rudy Gobert, it's not that he's not a great center in this era. No one's saying that he should not have 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards. What we're saying is that he would not have 4 in the 90s or another era because of the competition. It's not about him. It's about the competition. When guys are averaging over 4 blocks a game, and they're averaging over 20 points a game, and they're leading their teams to 50, 60 wins, Rudy Gobert's not going to sniff an MVP or a Defensive Player of the Year award with guys that are doing this stuff. It's just not going to happen, guys. These guys are playing all 82 games or 79 games, 75 games, going against some of the greatest centers in the history of the game. So again, they're battling for this stuff. They're legit earning it. So when you talk about the MVP awards over the last several seasons, I've told you guys like Russell Westbrook and the James Hardens, the Joel Embiids, Nikola Jokic himself, they're not winning MVPs in the 90s, guys. I mean, think about SGA. SGA's not winning an MVP with Michael Jordan. He ain't winning MVP with Magic Johnson or Charles Barkley or Karl Malone. The competition is going to be too stiff and fierce for you to win. Let's say SGA wins the MVP again this season. He wins 2 MVPs back to back. I'll give him an MVP, no doubt, man. He got an MVP. But now you get 2 MVPs. Again, rightfully so. He's one of the great players in the NBA over the last 5-6 years. Outstanding what SGA's been doing. The OKC Thunder are a formidable team, right? Again, we talk about what these guys are doing, winning a lot of games, winning a championship. SGA ain't winning 2 MVPs in the 90s, huh? He ain't winning 2 MVPs in the 90s. 2 MVPs in the 90s? No. It's not happening, guys. Not happening. I told you. The competition is again, the key word here is competition. It's called context. I'm giving you context, guys. I'm giving you some perspective here. Perspective, right? Think about some of the guys that played in the 2000s, right? Some of the guys that you've talked about that never even won Defensive Player of the Year award. So again, some of the guys that never won MVPs. Jason Kidd never won MVP, guys. Jerry West never won MVP. Why? Not because they weren't great or MVP caliber, but at the goddamn competition, guys. The damn competition. And I'm telling you guys right now, I believe Jason Kidd should have won one of those MVPs that Tim Duncan won. I'm not going to sit here and say that he was robbed, but Jason Kidd should have won it. All right, what the man did on the New Jersey Nets, Jason Kidd did in that 03 season, guys, nothing short of sensational, spectacular. And Jason Kidd leading the New Jersey Nets to back-to-back NBA Finals is one of the most underrated things that happened in the history of the NBA, guys. In the history of the NBA, man. Jason Kidd was a one-man wrecking crew. Yo, the Nets were the number 1 defensive team for 2 seasons in a row because of Jason Kidd anchoring them. A point guard anchoring your D to that level. You guys ever see what Jason Kidd made Richard Jefferson look like? You ever see what he made Kenyon Martin look like? Jason Collins, Aaron Williams, Lucius Harris, Kerry Kittles, right? Right? You guys remember some of these players that were on the New Jersey Nets? Yo, Jason Kidd had these dudes looking like a well-oiled machine, man. Yo, I told you guys. Yo, I'm telling you. I told you guys. Jason Kidd, one of my favorite players of all time, guys. One of my favorite players of all time. And I told you, when you talk about what he could do, he was one of the first guys I remember watching that can impact the game and not have anything in the box score. Right? You look at the box score and it'd be like 7 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. Right? Jason Kidd had maybe like 2 steals, right? Right? And all of a sudden, you watch the game and you thought he dropped 20 points, 15 assists, 13 rebounds. Like the dude was everywhere. Everywhere, doing everything, playing lockdown defense, being a hustle guy. I feel like Jason Kidd never got tired. The dude's motor was nonstop. Nonstop, Jason Kidd. This is nonstop. Was Jason Kidd a great shooter? No, I wasn't a great shooter. Was he going to go out there and drop 40 points on you? No, he absolutely was not going to do that. But Jason Kidd would go out there and dominate a game, and you would be like, what the hell? This dude's everywhere. He's everywhere. And the passing of Jason Kidd, the dude was doing half court, full court, 3/4 court alley-oops. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, the show that Richard Jefferson and Jason Kidd and Kenyon Martin, and I told you, Kerry Kittles, even when Vince Carter was there later on, I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous stuff. Jason Kidd was box office, man. I watch all those Nets games, man. I used to watch a lot of those Nets games. Man. And I'm telling you, this dude was doing things out there on the court And he should have absolutely won an MVP that season. But he never won an MVP. So again, we talk about that competition. You're going against Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett and Dirk Nowitzki, right? And Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. Like, you're going against stiff competition, Allen Iverson, for an MVP trophy, man. You're not going against James freaking Harden, man. All right, and Jason Tatum. And I respect some of these guys, but come on, man. Stop this nonsense. And these clowns out here playing, 65 games barely, trying to qualify for a freaking MVP trophy. They're so worried about the MVP trophy, Nikola Jokic, but they ain't worried about the playoff scenarios or who the hell they doing or what he's doing out here on the basketball court to win a championship. And at the end of that game, you would have it and put on that sad display. Yo, shout out to the Jordan Stopper, 82. Yo, Arse on the track. Shout out to you, man, for coming through as always. Yo, Jason Kidd was insane. I'm telling you, man. Remember, that's right. Jason Kidd came out and shut down LeBron James all those years later. So not only was Jason Kidd one of my favorite players when he was at his peak, in his prime, when he first came into the league, I got Jason Kidd rookie cards that I'll never get rid of. Some of this stuff. Grant Hill rookie card when they first came in the league, the co-rookie of the years. Jason Kidd came in the league, and he still made me proud all those years later when he came out in the finals and locked up LeBron James on the defensive end and went out there and earned it at like 38 years old or whatever the hell Jason Kidd was in those finals. So again, Jason Kidd showing that he can impact the game without putting up stats in a box score, without having a bunch of shots taken or having all the hype around him. He's going to go out there and impact the game. That's what Jason Kidd did, man. So again, shout out to Jason Kidd, like I said, and the fact that he never won an MVP, it doesn't take away from his overall greatness, man. The era he played in was stiff. It's hard to win in an era like that. Like I said, and Jason Kidd didn't have all the media hype behind him. Right? He had his own personal issues and off the court stuff. So he didn't have the NBA media pumping him up and hyping him up. But to me, absolutely should have won that MVP in 03. Absolutely. I told you, those New Jersey Nets teams, they were beating those Detroit Pistons teams before they became the Pistons, right, and won the championship the next year. He was battling against Paul Pierce Celtics, right, going against those guys. Tell you, man, Jason Kidd is one of my favorite players, man. And I told you, man, the top 5 passer in NBA's history, man. That dude was throwing passes. I ain't never seen people throw passes like Jason Kidd. The only guy I told you that got me more hyped was Magic Johnson. That's the only guy that I watched live. I didn't see, Bob Cousy or, I'm telling you, when I watched, I didn't see Pistol Pete Maravich live. None of these crazy flashes. But Jason Williams, man, to me, guys like Mark Jackson, but Jason Kidd, Magic Johnson, the pass that I've seen these guys do, and to me, the alley-oops of Jason Kidd, second to none. Second to none. I'm talking about three-quarter court, half-court alley-oops on the money. You're talking about off the backboard, behind the back, through the legs. You're talking about Jason Kidd throwing full-court bounce passes with this backspin on it. When it hits the ground, it bounces up. You guys know that. You throw that long pass with a spin on it, and it hits the floor and skips up. Jason Kidd was a master at this stuff, man. A master, guys. He could dribble the ball without carrying all over the damn place and traveling everywhere all over the court. He was strong, Jason Kidd. He was tough. Come on, man. I'm telling you guys right now, Jason Kidd was on another level, man. What he did, there was no one. I'm telling you, he did masterfully. Masterfully. I tell you, one of the greatest rebounding guards, point guards in NBA's history, up there with guys like Russell Westbrook, Fat Lever. Right, these are the great rebounding point guards, Magic Johnson, right, that were out there in the history of the NBA. Dude was insane, man. You guys know the deal, man. But once again, shout out to all you guys, man. Yeah, we've done. Oh man, I really see. You guys feel the same way about Jason Kidd. You guys see that Jason Kidd was like that. I told you, Jason was box office. That's why Newman, he was out there with Nenad Kristich. He was out there. I told you, he was out there making cats look nice. Look nice out there. I tell you, that's why I became probably why I became a Richard Jefferson fan. I was like, yo, Jason Kidd and Richard Jefferson, the combination, the alley-oops, it was like they had a connection out there. I mean, it was sensational. Sensational. Kenyon Martin, they were on the break. If they were on the break, it was over. It was over. They were fun to watch. Like I told you, they were one of the elite defenses for a couple of seasons there in that era where guys still played defense at a high level. And Jason Kidd was one of the great defensive point guards in the history of the game. Like I said, when you talk about the great defensive point guards, obviously we talk about a guy like Gary Payton, right? We talk about guys like the Walt Clyde Fraziers. We talk about the guys like Norman Van Leer, right? We talk about the John Stocktons. We talk about the Jason Kidds, man. These are the great defensive point guards in the history of the game, man. These guys go out there and lock you up. Dennis Johnson, they put the clamps on you at the point guard position, man. They get all up in you. I told you, Jason Kidd never got tired. You guys watched him. He never got tired. The dude had a motor. He's doing all this stuff out in the court. He never seemed tired. He never seemed flustered. He was never emotional. You never saw him get a character, rarely. Right? You didn't see that from Jason Kidd a lot. Telling you guys, that's right, Mike Larry. I told you about the bounce pass. I told you he was throwing them skip bounces a full court. I mean, guys, you know how hard this stuff is to do. We know how great these guys are. But when you talk about the cream of the crop, the top guys, Jason Kidd's one of the top guys, man. We talk about passing the basketball. When they tell you that LeBron James is on the level of Magic Johnson, they're disrespecting someone like Jason Kidd, guys. That's what we're saying here. You're not giving LeBron James props. You're disrespecting someone like Jason Kidd. LeBron James cannot shine Jason Kidd's shoes passing the ball. He cannot. Not even close. Not even close, guys. So if he's right behind Magic Johnson, then he must be greater than Jason Kidd. He's not greater than Jason Kidd. We've talked about all the great passing point guards who legit point guard. Remember, Jason Kidd is a pure point guard. Pure point guard. Pure point guard, man. Pure point guard. There's no other way about it. But Jason Kidd is a purest of the sense point guard. All right? And that man, as I said, could do everything on the basketball court, right, except for shoot the ball. He wasn't going to go out there and told you and be an offensive stalwart. But I told you, when you need a basket, Jason Kidd will get a basket for you. You need a defensive stop, Jason Kidd can make a defensive stop. You need a rebound, he get a rebound. You need a play. One of the greatest passes that I've ever seen in my life, Jason Kidd made on an inbounds pass over Yao Ming. I don't know if you guys ever remember that pass. He made an inbound pass over Yao Ming, guys. And Yao Ming was like this on the sideline. He threw an alley-oop over Yao Ming's hands on the money to Sean Marion for a game winner. You guys remember that play? You guys remember that play? Guys, that's Jason Kidd. You know what that is? That's another day at the office of Jason Kidd. Another day at the office. This man threw an inbound pass over Yao Ming on the money for a game winner, guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not just making this stuff up. Jason Kidd was like that. So, when we talk about the MVPs from Nikola Jokic, man, listen, he's got 3 MVPs, and I respect that. But this is not the same level of competition. Like I told you, you're telling me that Nikola Jokic he's a 3 MVPs, so he's 2 MVPs better than Kobe Bryant? Shaq has 1 MVP. Nikola's got 3. We just talked about Shaq before. You're telling me he's 2 MVPs better than Shaquille O'Neal. So again, I told you guys what? The MVP trophies matter. They matter in your resume. They matter in the debates, in the conversations. But we have to put context behind it. Context behind a lot of this stuff. Because again, if the players were voting for the MVPs when Kobe Bryant played, let's say, right? Or when Michael Jordan played, or when some of these other players were playing, how many MVPs would they have? How many MVPs would Nikola Jokic have if the players were voting for him for the MVP every season? I'm sure he would have won 1 or 2. Would he have won 3? I don't know. Would he have won 4? I don't know. But these are the kinds of conversations and context you have to put behind this stuff. George Mikan has 5 NBA championships, 0 MVPs, 0 Finals MVPs. And why is that, guys? No Defensive Player of the Year awards, no all defensive teams. Why is that, guys? Because they didn't have that stuff when George Mikan played. So when we have these debates and conversations, George Mikan's forgotten about. Why? Not because he wasn't great, but because there were no accolades to pump up his paper resume. There was no one to say, hey, man, this guy's got 5 championships, 5 MVPs. Because I think we can all agree that George Mikan probably would have won an MVP every freaking year he played in the NBA. He might be a 7-time MVP winner, George Mikan. He might be a 6-time MVP winner, a 5-time MVP winner. He would probably or maybe be a 5-time Finals MVP winner. Maybe he'd be a 3-time Finals MVP winner or a 4-time Finals MVP winner. But the man got a 5 championships because when he played the game, that's all there was to get. Right? How many Finals MVPs does Bill Russell have? Right? If they had the award then. How many would he have? How many Defensive Player of the Year awards? And we talked about this, right? How many does Will Chamberlain get? Or Nate Thurman get? Or Bill Russell get? Or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar have in his resume? Right? How many all defensive teams do they have to beef up their paper resume? So again, we talk about the MVP award. It depends on who you're talking about, right? The players you're debating against, right? Because every MVP award is different. The competition you're going against, the storylines for your MVP, right? Some guys are darling favorites of the media. Some guys know how to handle the media good. Some guys don't handle the media good. Some guys are not liked by the media, right? Some guys play with other teammates that take away from their MVP status. Some guys don't play for numbers and stats, so they won't get the MVP consideration. Right? Some guys are not leading teams to 50 or 60 wins. So you're not going to get an MVP even though you're putting up an MVP season because of the competition, how many wins the other teams are getting. I told you guys, Jokic has 2 MVPs, guys, winning 48 games and 47 games. You're not going to win an MVP in a lot of these other eras that we mentioned. You're not winning MVP's eras if you're not winning at least 60 games or in the high 50s. I told you the least amount of wins for an MVP winner in the 90s was 58. 58. That was Hakeem Olajuwon, guys, in 1994. That was the least amount of wins for an MVP winner. Nikola Jokic won with 48 wins. Remember Russell Westbrook won. Why? Because of the stats. They put up great stats. Even with a triple-double season. You ain't winning MVP in the 90s, man. You ain't winning MVP in the 90s with a triple-double season. Because other guys are putting up historic seasons and doing it on great teams, winning a lot of games. I mean, it's absolutely laughable. I've told you guys, it doesn't make any sense. So we talk about what you have to do, not only individually, do you have to put up hella fine statistics, but your team has to be winning games. So what does that show? That there's an impact to your stats. You're not just putting up stats on a team that's not that good, right? Or a team that's bad. You're putting up stats and you're having an impact because your team is winning 50-plus games, 60-plus games. And that's what you got in these other eras. The competition, like I told you guys, was fierce. This is what we always fall back on. The competition, it was fierce. So you're not going to win an MVP every year. People say, oh, Michael Jordan should have won an MVP all these years. The MVP is never the best player. We all know that Michael Jordan was the best player in the 90s. There was no one better or greater than Michael Jordan in the 90s. Nobody, not Hakeem, not Robinson or Barkley or Malone or Stockton or Miller or Drexler. No one. Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, Dennis Rodman. None of these guys. Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway, Jason Kidd. No one was better or greater than Michael Jordan in the 90s. But that doesn't mean that Michael was the MVP every freaking season. Could he have gotten the MVP every year? Absolutely. He could have gotten the MVP every year he played in the 90s, right? The only ones he didn't get it was what? 90, 93, and 1997. So essentially he won an MVP almost every year of the 90s, but there were other great players that were vying for the MVP award that were deserving of the MVP award. And it's not about being the best player. It's not about being the best player, right? So Michael Jordan took these things personal because Michael Jordan felt that he was the MVP and the best player in the league, but did he cry and moan about it? And what did Michael Jordan always say? I'm not saying that Charles Barkley doesn't deserve it or he didn't earn it or he shouldn't have got the MVP. I'm not saying that Karl Malone didn't earn or deserve it. He said, I took it personal. That's how I felt, that I'm the MVP. And that's what Michael Jordan did. That's why Michael Jordan was always prepared. Michael Jordan always used anything he could for fuel because he's a competitor. He's looking for an edge. It's not called petty. I told you, it's not pettiness. That's called competitiveness. That's called you looking for an edge. So if you have to be quote unquote petty to keep the edge going, that's what you got to do. That's called competing. Michael Jordan, like I said, wired differently than me and you. Again, shout out to you guys. I'm sorry if I missed your supers, guys. Forgive me here. Damn, man, I'm way back on this one, guys. Forgive me, guys, if I didn't see you guys' stuff. And hope you guys are still here. Shout out to Stan for coming through. Mentioning Brad Daugherty made me think of Mark Price, another stud, averaging 17 points and 89 assists in his prime, shooting 54% and 90% from the free throws. Once again, shout out to Stan, a true supporter of my channel for a long time now, and a true fan of basketball. And we've talked about Mark Price on this channel. You guys know Mark Price was a legit point guard. Again, a pure point guard. And Mark Price was a legit knockdown shooter. Again, when we talk about games translating over, right? And we talk about, oh, this guy's game would translate over into today's era. It's not just about trying to downplay today's guys and be like, oh, anybody from back in the day could play today. No, we're highlighting certain players, right, that were successful in the 90s, but their game would have even been greater in this era because of the lack of, physicality of the game, the space, the traveling and carrying. I mean, think about Mark Price. You guys ever watch Mark Price and the game that Mark Price played? Sensational, guys. He was a very underrated ball handler, Mark Price. He had a very good crossover move, Mark Price. A very good hesitation, Mark Price. And I told you, he's a knockdown shooter. Excellent passer, Mark Price. Was he one of the elite passers in NBA history? No. But he's a very good passer, Mark Price. And I told you, when you play in an era, again, when we talk about a word like competition, think about some of the names I mentioned before, guys. Think about the 90s alone when Mark Price played. When Mark Price came to the NBA. When we're talking about some of the great players that you're going against the Magic Johnsons, the Isaiah Thomases, right? The Gary Paytons, the Kevin Johnsons, the Tim Hardaways, right? You're going against the John Stocktons. You're going against some of the great point guards, right? Jason Kidd coming later, right, in the 90s. Penny Hardaway, right? Terry Porter. You're going against really good players. Mark Jackson, right? Kenny Anderson, Rod Strickland. I mean, there's so many point guards. I told you every night you're going against somebody, man. It's the facts. So you're going to have to bring it out on the basketball court. And Mark Price was a competitor. I told you. The Cleveland Cavaliers were a formidable team. Mark Price and Brad Daugherty both suffered, injuries that derailed their careers. Because to me, they're both Hall of Famers, right? If they play a consistent career. But the injuries derailed the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? So when you talk about, and Michael Jordan derailed them. I mean, that's the facts. But Mark Price was sensational. Go pull up some Mark Price video footage. They said not even like a highlight film. Just go watch a game of the Cleveland Cavaliers in the early 90s when Mark Price was doing his thing. They said the dude was a legit baller. I told you he was a legit pure point guard, a high IQ player. I told you a knockdown shooter. If you put him in this era and he's able to be a point guard, playmaker, scorer type of guy, I'm not saying that's what he would do or that was his game. He wasn't a scorer or a shooter like that or a guy that would take a lot of shots. But he was a guy that shot a high percentage, right? A guy that could break your defense down, right? He's going to get his teammates involved. And I told you, he's going to be lethal in the mid-range. You can't leave him open. You cannot leave him open. You can't. I told you, he'll break you down all night. Dude, he was quicker than people realized. He's a white guy. Oh, he's a white. Michael Jordan's going to get some white dudes out there. Mark Price was nasty, y'all. Nasty. I'm just telling you guys right now. I'm not just promoting this off of nostalgia. Oh, you think everyone from the 90s is great? No, I'm telling you about certain guys. Not everybody was like that. Mark Price was. He was a really good player in a very tough era. In a very tough era, he was. Like I said, man, yeah, shout out to Heath Overledger, Mookie Blaylock. I mean, you guys are on the money with this stuff, man. You guys remember a lot of these players. And I said, Mookie Blaylock will lock you up. Like I said, the entire landscape, like I said, of the NBA, what you had was professionals. Professionals. So what I'm telling you guys is when we talk about competition, I'm not saying that every player that competed in the 90s was a Hall of Fame level player or was an all-star. Everybody can't be an all-star. Everybody wasn't great. But what I'm telling you is that they were professionals. So even the lesser guys were tough because they went to school for years. They had fundamentally sound game. They learned the fundamentals. They played within themselves. That makes you better. When you play within yourself, when you play your game that you've accustomed yourself to, think about it. You've been to the park before, and there's that guy out there that just plays his game. And his game, you can't touch it. He just plays his game. The old man game, you've heard people say, oh, I got that old man game. Those guys played their roles in their games. They were professionals. So they battled for rebounds. They boxed you out. They contested shots. They got physical with you. They weren't going to back away. They weren't going to shy away from the contact. None of this stuff. They were going to bring it every night. They were going to be leaning on you. They were going to be sweating on you. They were professionals. So they were point guards. They were going to be point guards. They were going to be dishing on you. They were going to be breaking down your defense. I mentioned guys like Rod Strickland, Kenny Anderson, right? Kenny Smith. These secondary guys that you forget about because we talk and focus on the big-time players. But those guys, as quote-unquote secondary guys, they would be elite players today based off of the style of play. Think about Rod Strickland right now. You're giving him all the space, and he's an elite ball handler in that era. He's not like this, Rod Strickland. He's not dribbling like this. He's dribbling like this, right? You guys know that, man. These are the facts, all right? It's just the facts out here. I told you, a lesser guy, a Mark Jackson, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, right? We talk about something like Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, Dana Barros, right? The impact that some of these guys would have and the ability, how much the game would be easier for them today. So again, it's about being a professional, guys. Those guys were professionals, all right? So we talked about defensive, I mean, guys took pride in defense. Like it mattered to them. They didn't want to do nothing else but go out there and hustle and dive on the floor. That's what they were waiting to check in the game so they could dive on the floor. You remember those guys. Now, when someone dives on the floor, it's like a highlight. It's like, oh my God, you saw him drive on the floor? Every team had guys like that. Every team. Every team had an enforcer. Every team had a legit 7-footer. That was the way it was. Like I said, everyone played a position, man. You have a bunch of goofy kids out there. They were grown men. Grown men. And you watch grown men play basketball like grown-ups play basketball. And when you watch grown-ups play basketball, especially those kinds of grown-ups, you're talking about the professional grown-ups. When you watch that, then once again, it makes you realize what you're seeing now. These are not professionals. You're not acting professional. Goodness gracious, man. Forgive me, guys. I know I'm a little bit behind on the supers. Goodness gracious. Shout out to you guys for coming through. Shout out to LH Fitness. I hope you guys are still here, man. I'm sorry I'm a little bit behind on this one. Rudy Gobert is outplaying Jokic in the series. Y'all still believe he can survive in the 90s. Salute, Sports and Fitness Rants. We were talking a little bit about this. Like I said, forgive me, guys, for being a little bit behind. I hope you're still here. I told you guys, I respect Rudy Gobert for what he's done in his era, and I respect him as a defensive guy. I've never once said that Rudy Gobert was crap on defense. I've told you guys what I'm not saying. I don't believe he's a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year award winner in the other eras. So I don't know if would Rudy Gobert be able to play in the 90s? Yeah, I think he could play in the 90s. I've told you guys, a lot of these good players, the great players, they could play in the other eras. But what kind of impact would they have, right? Would they still be great in those eras? That's what the question comes in. So Rudy Gobert would be a good player, right? But Rudy Gobert's never averaged 3 blocks in a season, right, before in his career. And I told you, in order for you to win these awards that he's won, you're going to have to put up these crazy numbers like that because these guys are averaging over 4. I told you, guys like Ewing and Olajuwon and Mark Eaton and Manute Ball, Mutombo. I mean, these guys are putting up 3.5, 4 blocks, 4.5, 5.5 blocks a game. I mean, Mark Eaton was averaging 5.4, 5 blocks a game in some of these seasons. Manute Ball, 5.2 blocks per game in some of these seasons. Hakeem Olajuwon, 4.6. Patrick Ewing, 4.0. David Robinson, 4.0, 4.1, 3.9. Like, I mean, insane numbers to go along with their elite offensive play. These guys are elite on the offensive end and on the defensive end. And their teams were really good. I mean, my gosh. Like I said, it's another level here. So Gobert would be, I think, one of these guys that would be in the league. He would be, I told you, a lesser guy. He would be probably like an Olden Polynice or a Michael Cage or somebody like that. A guy that, was a good player, but a guy that's not going to be making like an all-star teams like that, or a guy's going to be winning a bunch of awards or any kind of stuff, but is going to be a good solid player that you need on your team that I think can help you win. But I do not believe that he would be, like I said, the best defensive player in the 90s. And I think we all agree on that. I think that's obvious. And again, that's not knocking Rudy Gobert. It's not knocking him. It's putting props and respect on those guys. And that's what it's been about. Yeah, on offense, yeah, right, Mike Lowry. He would have no offensive impact. I told you, he would be a guy that would be like either a journeyman or a guy you bring off the bench right? To give you like I said, he's a defensive specialist you bring in, right? Hey, man, we bring Gobert in, and you bring him in certain scenarios or certain times to back up your main guy, maybe, right? And as so, I mean, you think about like see, like when people compare Rudy Gobert, like I think that they believe, like I've seen people say this and talk about this, like he's Dikembe Mutombo. And when you talk about the defensive player of the awards that Dikembe Mutombo's won, and Dikembe Mutombo is not known for being an offensive-minded player like a Shaq or Ewing or Robinson, right, or some of these other guys that we talked about, even like a Robert Parrish, a Brad Daugherty, some of these guys, he didn't have an offensive game like the other centers. Mutombo, but Mutombo was excellent around the rim. So when you talk about Rudy Gobert is terrible around the rim, right? Like, yeah, he's really good at offensive rebounds and going and trying to get tip-ins, but he's not effective around the rim, right? He missed a lot of layups, right? To me, Dikembe Mutombo was a nastier player. He had those elbows, those sharp elbows. And I told you, Mutombo around the rim, he was dunking a lot more. To me, he was a better dunker, I believe. And we all know, to me, the rebounding and the shot blocking, to me, is night and day. Well, Mutombo and Gobert. But to me, it's like I said, it's just not the same. To me, Gobert's offensive prowess is really, really bad in a really weak defensive era. Like think about it. Like, to me, Mutombo in this era could maybe average 20 points a game in this era, just off of hustle tip-ins, off of alley-oop dunks, right, off of those kinds of plays. Maybe getting to the free throw line a bunch of times and making some of these free throws. I said he had a better touch than me. So, again, I think that he would put up maybe almost 20 points a game in this era, right? I mean, like, it's just crazy. I said to even think that you can compare him to Dikembe Mutombo. I told you, Mutombo, they're underestimating Mutombo's around the rim. I told you, a lot of those guys, I told you, they had offensive skills and games, and they always played their role and played where they were supposed to be. Mutombo's not going to play outside of himself, right? I saw Rudy Gobert last night take a three-point shot, guys. You know what I said? Rudy Gobert chucked up a three last night, and it wasn't like it was a last-second heave. He shot a three as if, and it was like one of those things like the Minnesota Timberwolves weren't even winning by that much. They were up, I want to say they were up by like 5 points, I want to say. And Rudy Gobert chucked up a three last night. And I'm like, dude, come on, dude. And it was one of those things where they were like, oh, the Minnesota Timberwolves are feeling good. And Gobert was out there like he was wide open for a reason, guy. There was a reason why you were open. And it was like, oh, I'm open. Let me shoot this. Mutombo's not doing that. All right, the centers from the 90s, centers in jail, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I mean, obviously, guys, back in the day, there was no freaking three-point line in the other eras. But the big men, they're not chugging up threes because they're open. There's a reason why you're open, fool. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing? It's a playoff scenario, dude, and you're chugging up threes. Slow IQ basketball from Rudy Gobert. But it's supposed to be the most skilled era. I told you. It's laughable. I posted that video of Rudy Gobert airballing that little push shot from the free throw line. He airballed it. Does anyone remember Rudy Gobert having that move in his arsenal? A one-handed push shot from the key? You ever remember that Rudy Gobert's arsenal? Never did. All of a sudden now in the playoff game, you're popping up with a one-handed push shot. Dude, you're making up stuff. You're just making up stuff out there. You don't have that game. So that's what I'm talking about, some of these fools out here. Stick to what you do. Oh, guys. I mean, insane stuff here, man. Let me read off from so many supers, guys. Forgive me for being behind on some of your supers, guys. I'm sorry. But Rudy Gobert is outplaying Nikola Jokic, guys. It's not about the numbers. It's about what's going on the court. He's beating Nikola Jokic to the spots, the loose balls. He's outplaying him on defense. He's getting to all his spots on D. He's beating Nikola Jokic all his spots on D. Like I said, he's just having an impact out there on the court. He's frustrating Nikola Jokic big time. Shout out to King Mariam for coming through 007. He says, is it just me or these players refuse to evolve? That's a great point right there. When you talk about the lack of evolution or the lack of development or the lack, I told you, of like learning from things like mistakes, right? We talk about a lot of these guys and their off the court stuff and their personal things and how these guys make dumb decision after dumb decision, dumb choice after dumb choice. They don't learn from this stuff. It seems like no one's telling them the right things, behind the scenes. And then you watch a lot of these games and everyone's trying to do the same thing. No one's playing their own style of game. No one's being creative. Everyone's playing, let's pick and roll basketball, top of the key nonsense. Everyone wants to take 20,000 shots a game. No one wants to be a role player, right? Coaches don't make adjustments. I told you, what did the guy Adelman do last night? What did Adelman's son do? I can't remember the guy's first name, but I remember Rick Adelman from the 90s. He coached the Portland Trail Blazers and the Sacramento Kings. What did his son do last night? Dude, you didn't make no adjustments to the Sumu. No adjustments. I told you at halftime, I would have told my team, listen, the game plan we had for Edwards, we're going to implement that game plan on the Sumu. That's what we're doing coming out the third quarter. Everything we had coming into this game for Edwards, we're going to put it on that kid. And let's see what he does. And let's see what happens out there in the court. But you didn't do that. They made no adjustments. You got Nikola Jokic standing there. Right? We talked about this. No adjustments from Adelman. What are we doing out here? So this is what we're talking about some of his coaches. They don't do nothing. I'm a guy sitting on my freaking couch. I'm a guy in my garage just yelling. I'm a fool in my car. And I'm sitting there watching this game. And I'm like, why would you not realize this guy's killing you, man? This dude is killing you out there. Killing you. And I told you, I coach my son. I coach young children. I've been coaching my son since in kindergarten. They're in third grade now. So as they're getting older, it becomes more and more competitive, does it not? Yeah, it does. So what ends up happening is as I'm coaching these kids, right, you start to tell to them and tell them, hey, listen, you realize who your good players are, who the athletes are on your team, right? Who are the kids who got skills and the kids who are not so skilled, right? I told you the kids that my son has to help because they're not as good. So you realize and you understand, okay, let me put these kids in a best position so that they can look and feel good about themselves and they can look successful on the football field or the basketball court, whatever it is. So you try to put matchups and favorable matchups for the kids, right? So in the football scenario, right, I'm not going to have one kid covering another kid that I know he cannot cover. I'm not going to do this stuff. So if I see another kid destroying my team and I'm like, damn, this kid keeps catching everything. They keep going to this kid. He's their main guy. I'm going to make an adjustment. In third freaking grade, I'm going to look at my team and I'm going to either look at my son or I'm going to look at one of the other kids that's really good. That's one of my better kids. And I'm going to say, yo, listen, you have him. You have that kid. That's what you got. You got that kid right now. You guard him. We're not going to do something where we're going to try to put all my players on this one kid because he's their only guy. We're going to make it a competition. I'm going to put my best player on their best player. And whoever wins, if you could cook my son and cook my son up, go ahead and destroy him out there. I don't give a damn. It's going to be better for my son to go out there and go against the top competition kids. But I always try to put my best players against the other team's best players when I see we're getting destroyed. So you see this freaking guy going for 40 on you. And you make no adjustments. Nothing happened out there. There was no awareness on the court from the Nuggets play. I told you, time and time again, off the screen, Nikola Jokic sagging back. And the Sumu attacking him, either eating up, closing the space, or pulling up right in his face for three. 5 for 5. No adjustments. A bench guy. Anthony Edwards didn't even play the second half. Julius Randle was doing Julius Randle stuff, stumbling and bumbling all over the court, making bonehead play after bonehead play. I told you, and randomly Julius Randle will look like Magic Johnson out there. And then the rest of the game, he looks like Julius Randle. And the Denver Nuggets still couldn't win the game? And then, like I said, Nikola Jokic gets all emotional at the end of the game, and you look like a fool. Straight fool out there at the end of the game, crying and moaning the way you did. Shout out to Praise It Don. Jason Kidd over Gary Payton, in my opinion. I got him as the 4th greatest point guard of all time. But once again, shout out to Praise It Don. I've told you guys, I would take Kidd over Gary Payton also. Shout out to both those players. They're both great players. Gary Payton, I think, is it's tough for me when you think about defensively. I'll give the edge to Gary Payton because to me he was a little bit more tenacious on the defensive end. Even though Jason, I told you guys, he was really like that on defense. I think Gary Payton was maybe a little bit more potent when we talk about what he could do. And the scrappiness of him, his attitude. He had that attitude, that real nasty dog in him. Even though I told you, Jason Kidd was like that. He was, man. I would give maybe the edge to Gary Payton on the defensive end. He doesn't have the size of Jason Kidd, but Gary Payton was a hellified defender on the post, like Jason Kidd was. And on the perimeter, like I said, he had that nastiness in him. But overall, I'm going with Jason Kidd over Gary Payton. Obviously, Jason Kidd was a better rebounder than Gary Payton. Scoring the ball, obviously, I think Gary Payton was a better scorer. Maybe shooting the ball wise. Ball handling, I'm going to go with Jason Kidd. Ball handling, obviously, passing is Jason Kidd. And to me, when I told you, Jason Kidd has really underrated finishing ability, right? I don't think Jason Kidd was like a Kyrie Irving or a Steph Curry finishing at the rim, like, you know what I'm saying, as far as like layup packages and that kind of stuff. But Jason Kidd, to me, was a very underrated finisher at the rim. And I told you, he's bigger than I think people realize. He's like 6'4", 6'5", Jason Kidd. He was wide. He was like 200-some pounds, man. He was a big body out there, Jason Kidd. So I would think that, to me, the impact of Jason Kidd is greater than Gary Payton's impact. I think galvanizing team, the intangibles, I think all point to Jason Kidd as far as, like, ranking them. So I would definitely go with Jason Kidd over Gary Payton. Like I said, you talk about the impact and what Jason Kidd could do. Gary Payton's not leading that New Jersey Nets team to 2 finals. It's just not happening. And that's not even knock on Gary Payton, but he's just not doing it. All right. Well, I told you what Jason Kidd did, what he could do. He was very unique, Jason Kidd. I think I told you, I think Jason Kidd's a little underrated, I think. I'm not saying that he's, disrespected or anything like that, but I think people forget, like I said, the impact or the intangibles. And like I told you, what he could do on the court. We talked about 2011 and when Jason Kidd, but if you look at the arc, the career arc for Jason Kidd and Gary Payton, it is kind of similar. Jason Kidd bounced around a little bit more with Dallas and the Phoenix Suns, New Jersey Nets, and then back to Dallas and, this kind of stuff, the New York Knicks, I think, at the end there. But if you think about Gary Payton going from Seattle, I think he went to the Milwaukee Bucks, and then he went to the Miami Heat, where he became a champion, having an impact, for the 2006 Miami Heat team, kind of like the impact that Jason Kidd had for the 2011 Dallas Mavericks. So their storylines and their career arcs are kind of similar. They're coming from a similar kind of area. I believe Jason Kidd was from the Bay Area, right? Like, I think from like Sacramento. They're both from Oakland. I can't remember. I think Gary Payton's from Oakland, but they're both from the Bay Area. So we talk about where they've come from and where they ended up as champions. They're both really respected, great players. But I would go Jason Kidd. Shout out to you guys. Like I said, man, I'm going to try and get to these lives, man. Forgive me. Willin8664, shout out to you for coming through. Would Nash making Stat in the Suns look better? Be similar to Kidd making Kmart look better in the Nets? Oh, wow, that's a great comparison there. I think that Amari Stoudemire was a better overall player than Kenyon Martin was. I think he was a better athlete. I think Kenyon Martin he's one of those guys where you talk about the injuries. I think like the knee injury or something like that, if I remember correctly, with Kenyon Martin. But if you remember Kenyon Martin coming out of Cincinnati, I believe it was Cincinnati, came from the Bearcats. When he came out of college, he was a high draft pick, Kenyon Martin. So he had a lot of hype. He was good, a very good player. Kenyon Martin played with a lot of nastiness to him. That's why I'm shocked with someone like Kenyon Martin. Some of the things I've heard him say on the microphone over the last several years on the Gilbert Arenas podcast. I wonder, like, why would you, like, the way that I watched him play the game was with a ferocious tenacity. Almost like a fire, like a Kevin Garnett, Kenyon Martin. He played with that kind of fire and emotion to him, but obviously not the athlete of a Kevin Garnett. But he was a very good player, Kenyon Martin, a solid rebounder. Not a great rebounder, a really good rebounder, but he was a solid rebounder. Wasn't really a defender, but he was a really good shot blocker, Kenyon Martin, but not known as a defender, like, a stout defender down low, but he was a really good shot blocker because he used his athleticism, right, to get up there and intimidate and block shots. But he was a really good finisher above the rim, man, a great alley-oop finisher with Jason Kidd. I told you, he would just dunk on you, Kenyon Martin. He was nasty, man. So that's why when someone like Kenyon Martin has the injury, it really takes away from him because he used his athleticism, his explosiveness. That was a big part of his game. So when you lose that, you kind of lose Kenyon Martin. But when you talk about what Steve Nash and the Phoenix Suns did, I talked about this in a recent video with that guy Lowe, Legends of Winning, that clown Legends of Winning, because he was trying to knock the Phoenix Suns, and what Steve Nash was doing as gimmick basketball in the 2000s, in the mid-2000s. And yes, we can say that what Steve Nash and the Phoenix Suns were doing was different, right, than what everyone else was doing in the 2000s, right? And people did knock Mike D'Antoni and the Phoenix Suns for playing that style. But it wasn't because of the offensive style that they played. It was because of the lack of defense that they played to go along with that offense. So if you remember, there have been great offensive teams in NBA's history, right? But there have been also great offensive teams that have also been very good on defense. It's not about being great on defense, but you at least want to be good or very good on defense. The Phoenix Suns were never that, right? They were solid, never very good or good on defense. So when you talk about the offensive prowess, it wasn't a gimmick what they were doing, because I told you guys what about the Phoenix Suns. Not only were they taking the most threes in the league in the mid-2000s, I told you, 2005, 2006, and 2007, guys, 3 consecutive seasons. The Phoenix Suns led the NBA in three-point attempts, but also led the NBA in three-point percentage, guys. So what does that mean? Not only are they taking a lot of shots, or the most shots in the NBA, I believe on average they were taking about 24 threes a game, which is really laughable when you think about what they're doing now. But when you talk about that, not only were they taking the most threes in the league, they were making them at the highest clip, the highest percentage in the league. That's called good quality basketball. And you know why that was, guys? Because of Steve Nash, man. Steve Nash, again, we're talking about a lot of players here. Steve Nash, again, one of the elite point guards, point guard in NBA's history, a true point guard. Steve Nash had an uncanny ability to continue and never stop his dribble. Guys, I'm giving you context and perspective about these players here. I watched this guy. I watched these guys. Steve Nash had the uncanny ability to dribble into your defense and dribble around and come back around. How many times you guys see Steve Nash do that? Dribble into the teeth of the defense, come back around and keep probing and drop it off to Mike Stoudemire. Drop off to Sean Marion. Drop it off to Boris Diaw. Drop it out to Joe Johnson, Quentin Richardson, whoever the hell was out there. Steve Nash made all them dudes look good. All those guys got contracts. Quentin Richardson, Joe Johnson, Leandro Barbosa, Amari Stoudemire, Boris Diaw. All these guys got money because they all look good playing with Steve Nash, guys. The problem was they had no defense like that. But when they were playing that style of game, it was absolutely sensational. Because I told you, they weren't just chucking up threes. They weren't the Houston Rockets of 2017 or 2018, right? They were knocking and taking shots, and they were knocking them down, y'all. Number 1% for 3 consecutive seasons. 3 consecutive seasons, guys. Winning 60-plus games. Being led by a legit MVP caliber player, Steve Nash. Once again, Amari Stoudemire was a very good player. And when you look at what he did for Amari Stoudemire, he made him a Hall of Famer. Now, Amari Stoudemire, I told you, was a very good player. But you're playing with Steve Nash. And a lot of those seasons with Steve Nash on the Phoenix Suns, winning those games, this is why you're in the Hall of Fame right now. Amari Stoudemire. Again, if we talk about Kenyon Martin, the injuries, and he didn't play long enough with a Jason Kidd really at that level to get the same kind of career boost that Amari Stoudemire got from Steve Nash. I'm telling you guys right now, it's these are the facts out here. You guys know when you talk about the way Steve Nash played the game, I'm telling you guys right now, that man would dribble into the defense. He never picked his dribble up. I'm telling you guys right now, and that's what an elite point guard does. You don't pick up your dribble. We've heard that. These are fundamental. I told you these guys are fundamentally sound. Steve Nash gets a lot of pushback because of his back-to-back MVPs, and I get it, man. Some of the Shaquille O'Neal fans, right, the Kobe Bryant fans, they feel a certain way about Steve Nash MVPs. But I told you guys one thing: the MVPs, right, for each player, it goes on a case-by-case basis. Steve Nash having 2 MVPs doesn't make him better than the other player who has 1, who has 0. All right, because I'm not putting Steve Nash above Jerry West, even though Steve Nash has 2 MVPs. I'm not going to do that. I'm not putting Steve Nash above Shaquille O'Neal because he has 2 MVPs, or above Kevin Garnett, right? I mean, so when you talk about the levels of players and the MVP award, Steve Nash absolutely deserved and earned those MVPs. But there may have been other players that may have been deserving also. Just because other people are deserving of the award doesn't mean that it invalidates Steve Nash winning it, right? But everyone always points to Steve Nash. His MVPs are crap. His MVP, he robbed this guy. He didn't rob anybody. Steve Nash won the MVPs he won. He was a great player doing great things on a team that won a lot of games, man. And like I mentioned, look what he did for all these other great players out there. He got all those guys money. He made them look good, and the impact was there. And I told you, he was a legit all-time great point guard, Steve Nash, one of the elite passers in the history of the game, guys. So again, I think we're going to leave it on that, guys. I really appreciate you guys. Like I said, let me ramble on and talk all this time. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I told you guys, like I said, it means a lot. I'm truly humbled, man. I hope I got to everybody's supers. I'm trying, man. I've missed one. LH Fitness again. Salute Sports and Fitness. Jokic never led a team to 60 wins. And see, that's right. And only be one 50-win team in the playoffs, which was last year Clippers. So how is he a top 5 offensive player ever? Yo, you on the money with that LH Fitness. You're right. Because we've talked about some of that stuff before, right? never really playing against 50-win teams or elite level competition, but they keep promoting you not having help, right? Why do you need so much help to be the play in Miami Heat? You didn't need a lot of help. You needed Jamal Murray. You had Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray represented. So did the rest of your teammates. All right, Nikola Jokic has been a great player, but they promote him as being the greatest player of all time or the greatest offensive player of all time, the smallest offensive player ever. It's not adding up, guys. What we're seeing in the series, what we've seen over the last couple of games, is Nikola Jokic not playing defense at that level, not even hustling and giving effort at that level, and looking like a sore loser at the end of the game, looking like a guy who, once again, is going through the motions and proving that the offensive numbers, the triple doubles, is not going to win championships. Ultimately, defense, damn whatever Kevin Durant said, sliding your feet, bending your knees, giving consistent effort on defense is what wins championships, guys. You guys know that. Remember, I'll catch you guys on the next one.